Most players enter a dungeon looking for loot to wear. Our protagonist, Stigma, enters looking for a 3-course meal. While everyone else is polishing their legendary swords, this guy is seasoning them with salt and pepper. He's got the world's most expensive diet, literally eating his way to the top of the rankings. Forget pay to win. We're talking pray you don't get eaten to win. Stick around to see how a guy with a literal iron stomach becomes the world's greatest threat to museum curators everywhere. This young man is our protagonist, Shin Sang-hyun. He is an awakened, possessing a unique ability that allows him to devour artifacts to grow stronger. The story begins when Sang-hyun is 55 years old, his face weary as he slumps to the ground. What am I even doing at this age? Other people are thinking about retirement. My life is nothing but a failure, he mutters, his voice laced with self-mockery. At that moment, outside the cave, 3 wyverns prowl closer. Their ferocious eyes lock onto him, fangs bared and claws ready. As they charge forward, Sang-hyun lets out a weary sigh, forcing himself to his feet while gripping his sword tightly. A wry smile tugs at his lips. Damn it, can't you even give me a moment to breathe? Before he can react, the wyverns dive straight into the cave. Their massive jaws tear through the narrow space, reducing it to rubble in an instant. But Sang-hyun isn't afraid of them. He isn't afraid of anything. Gathering strength in his legs, he surges forward like an arrow, heading straight for the monsters. And even as he prepares to face these deadly creatures, his mind drifts to his past. Why did I fail? The players of my generation became legends, sword saints, sword gods. Meanwhile, I became nothing more than an old man swinging a sword, a forgetful swordsman at best. That's all the recognition I ever got. Isn't that reason enough? I had no family. I grew up in an orphanage, but even the caretaker and the other kids, people I considered family, were wiped out when Skyfall happened. The sky itself split open, and monsters rained down like a storm, taking everything from me. Yet Sang-hyun did not despair. At the brink of death, a miracle occurred. A silver-armored warrior streaked through the air, sword flashing as he cleaved the wyvern restraining Sang-hyun into countless pieces. Then, as if it were nothing, the warrior turned slightly, his voice warm and steady. "Hey kid, you okay?" That childhood memory remained etched in Sang-hyun's mind even to this day. He had been saved by that symbol of power, and because of that, he wanted to become just like them. I really gave it my all. So why, no matter how many monsters I cut down, I never got any stronger. I could never avenge anything. The helplessness of watching his comrades fall, one by one, had been burned into his soul. Back to the present. Sang-hyun had just finished taking down the 3 wyverns that had planned to turn him into their next meal. But as he had admitted earlier, his body had long reached the age of retirement. After dealing with a few lousy monsters, he was already gasping for air, using his sword as a crutch just to keep himself from collapsing. Damn it, my body's really giving out on me. This is bad. His voice trembled with exhaustion, and so did his body. But this was far from over. Those 3 wyverns, they were just the appetizer. Suddenly, the ground quaked, a deep, thunderous tremor signaling the arrival of something far worse. Sang-hyun's eyes narrowed as he slowly turned his gaze forward. Standing before him was a massive dragon, its entire body clad in gleaming crimson scales that shimmered like molten metal. The moment the dragon locked eyes with Sang-hyun, it wasted no time. It let out a deafening roar, then opened its jaws wide. Gathering a blistering inferno within its maw, the heat waves radiated outward, distorting the very air around them. Sang-hyun could only respond with a strained, bitter smile. I have no family. My life has been one endless failure, filled with nothing but regrets. Damn it, I'm screwed. To hell with this, I want a regression. He cursed internally, but time did not wait for him. The battle raged on. By the end of it, the entire landscape had been reduced to a desolate ruin, ravaged beyond recognition. The corpses of countless dragons littered the battlefield. And yet, miraculously, our protagonist Sang-hyun was still alive. His sword was lodged deep into the skull of some unfamiliar dragon, marking his final victory. At that moment, a system notification appeared. Congratulations, you have conquered the ancient dragon nest dungeon. But Sang-hyun ignored it completely. Instead, he threw his head back and let out a loud, frustrated yell toward the sky. For God's sake, why the hell am I pushing myself this hard when I'm almost 60? Shin Sang-hyun, the nameless swordsman. Shin Sang-hyun, our protagonist, is 55 years old. He has been a swordsman for 30 years. Yet his greatest achievement is only ranking within the top 100 in his homeland. Considering the sheer number of players worldwide, this essentially makes him nothing more than a nameless nobody. Now, shifting back to Sang-hyun's perspective, after leaping off the massive dragon's corpse, he unexpectedly discovered a glowing skill book lying nearby. Surprised, he muttered, "Oh, so my reward this time is a skill book. I've devoured artifacts before. Can I eat this too?" But before he could make a move, a sudden flash of light appeared beside him. instantly drawing his attention. Turning his gaze toward the source, he saw a spatial gate materialize before him. From within the swirling portal, a young man with golden hair, glasses, and a book in hand gracefully leapt out. At the same moment, a system notification popped up in front of Sang-hyun. The constellation, diligent student who found success late, has entered. Diligent student who found success late kindly blesses you for your hard work. Additionally, he praises your flawless finishing move. Seeing this newcomer, Sang-hyun wasn't particularly surprised. After all, this person was none other than his contracted constellation, diligent student who found success late. Ha ha, thanks, Sang-hyun replied, genuinely grateful that this constellation had chosen to form a contract with a mere third-rate swordsman like him. As for the perks of this contract, if a player reached level 850, all artifact effects and title stats would be doubled. Upon reaching level 900, all stats would be tripled. However, with his current level sitting at 650, Sang-hyun had yet to reap any benefits from this arrangement. Unaware of Sang-hyun's inner thoughts, the blonde constellation suddenly transformed into a chibi version of himself, floating closer while urging him to hurry up and consume the skill book. Hearing that, Sang-hyun let out an awkward chuckle. Haha, I was planning to eat it anyway. Alright, here goes. With that, he stretched out his palm toward the skill book and activated his unique ability, Artifact Devourer. This is the only skill I've had since my awakening. To understand how it works, I tried cooking and eating artifacts. I even fried them, but there was no difference. By the time I finished my useless experiments, 30 years had passed. It was only when I attempted to synchronize my mana with an artifact of the right rank that I realized it activated my Artifact Devourer skill. But by then, it was already too late. Others had grown powerful the moment they awakened. Before him, the skill book glowed brilliantly as his ability took effect. However, just a few seconds later, the light suddenly flickered out, snuffed out like a flame doused in water. That's it? Nothing happened. Silence followed. Then frustration surged within Sang-hyun. In one swift motion, he grabbed the book and hurled it forward. Shouldn't this thing come with some kind of instructions? There's no way this is an actual skill book. Beside him, his constellation companion scratched his head in confusion. There's not much information available about pre-existing skills. Sorry, I can't be of much help, he admitted apologetically. He reassured Sang-hyun, saying there was still time and suggested he try again, perhaps by synchronizing his mana once more. But instead of comforting him, those words seemed to ignite a fire within Sang-hyun. His teeth clenched, the corners of his eyes stung as a sudden wave of emotion crashed over him. Time? Who told you I still have time? I'm almost 60. If I had a kid at 30, they'd be nearly 30 by now. And if I had them even earlier, I'd probably have grandkids already. You might not understand this because you're a constellation, but humans don't live that long. Across from him, the blonde constellation paled, cold sweat beading on his forehead. I'm sorry if I said something wrong, he stammered. Back to Sang-hyun's perspective, seeing himself lash out at his closest companion over nothing, it wasn't right. His face softened, and he let out a weary sigh, shaking his head. No, you didn't say anything wrong. It's just, my life is full of regrets. I can't forget that person's silhouette. I tried so hard to become like him, but now, I'm exhausted. I'm too old. His voice trailed off, his words left hanging in the air. Hearing Sang-hyun's lament, the young constellation fell silent, deep in thought. Then, as if reaching a decision, he broke into a smile. Sang-hyun, oblivious to this, scratched his head. Anyway, I was planning to retire. Take note, I'm canceling our contract. You should find someone else to play with. Before he could finish his sentence, Sang-hyun suddenly noticed the space around him distorting. The world itself seemed to bend and melt away. At that moment, a system notification flashed before his eyes. Constellation, diligent student who succeeded late, is maximizing the essence you have been exposed to. Regression initiated. Scene transition. An outdoor interview. Under the bright sun, a handsome reporter with brown hair turned to the person beside him. Dungeons and gates. They're the basic environments for awakened individuals. Or in other words, where players work, right? The person he was speaking to was a striking woman with red hair neatly tied back. Han Hyun-young, CEO of Hyun-young Group. That's right, she confirmed. You can think of dungeons as stepping stones for players. As for gates, they lead to different dimensions, unknown territories that players must pioneer and explore. Hearing this, the reporter let out an intrigued hum. Oh? Then what are your thoughts on this year's dungeons? Hyun-young nodded and replied, my theory is blah blah. Back to the main character's perspective. Watching the interview on TV, Sang-hyun finally confirmed his current situation. As he wiped down the short sword in his hands, he flashed a grin. I really did regress. It's been ages since I last saw this broadcast. Now I get it, but 4 days have already passed. That means I've returned to 30 years ago. The moment his constellation activated his ability, Sang-hyun had lost consciousness. When he woke up, he found himself in the apartment he had lived in 30 years ago, no longer in his 55-year-old body. Now he was 25, armed with all the memories of his past life. No matter how I think about it, my regression was definitely caused by the constellation's magic. There's no other explanation. But still, I can't help but feel a little overwhelmed. He exhaled. Oh well, no big deal. I should head out and get to work, right? With that, Sang-hyun tightened his grip around the short sword in his hand. As expected, information about the weapon immediately appeared before Sang-hyun. Vanamoth's dagger artifact. Rank bronze, weapon type one-handed dagger. Attack power plus 17. Speed bonus plus 10. Description A. Self-defense dagger that does not dull easily. Looking at the dagger, a nostalgic glint appeared in Sang-hyun's eyes. This is the bronze rank dagger I was lucky enough to get at this point in time. Its rank may be low, but I know its hidden skill. Without hesitation, Sang-hyun activated Devour Artifact, causing the dagger to emit a brilliant flash of light. A system window appeared before him. Absorption rate calculated. Base absorption rate for bronze artifacts. 10%. Past usage evaluation applied. Absorption rate increased to 20%. Since I didn't use it for long, the absorption rate is low, but what really matters is its hidden skill. Mana synchronization with Venomoth's dagger initiated, entering the unconscious realm. As the notification rang out, Sang-hyun's consciousness was pulled into a pitch-black space, void of any light. The unconscious realm? This is the place I need to pass through in order to devour an artifact. I always get nervous coming here. I never know what kind of food will appear. Despite his words, he smiled in anticipation, and sure enough, before he could wait any longer, something suddenly emerged in front of him. A roast chicken, glowing with a gentle light. This is barbecue roast chicken with olive oil. Seeing the dish's appetizing appearance, Sang-hyun let out a sigh of relief. I'm glad it's something normal. I was worried it'd be something disgusting, like a swamp centipede, but if it's a meal like this, I can eat it easily. Smirking, he reached out, tore off a drumstick and took a bite, as each mouthful was swallowed. The system notifications continued. Vanamoth's dagger is being absorbed. Speed plus 2 acquired. New skill obtained. Phantom Step, Vanamoth's dagger. The absorbed artifact has been permanently erased. Just like that, after finishing the roast chicken, Sang-hyun's consciousness was forcefully ejected from the unconscious realm. He rubbed his stomach, let out a deep sigh, and nodded as he reviewed the system confirmation screen. It's a shame the dagger got destroyed. Well, I wasn't using it anyway. At least I absorbed a useful skill as planned. Now then, time to move on. Time passed quickly. The scene shifted to a bustling city street, where a massive blue portal stood tall in the center. Surrounding it were numerous awakened individuals, all preparing for the upcoming dungeon expedition. This was dungeon number 85. The awakened individuals gathered here belonged to Yoon Dae-kyung's team. Just then, a man dressed in work attire came rushing toward Yoon Dae-kyung, visibly panicked. Captain Yoon Dae-kyung. Hearing someone call his name, Yoon Dae-kyung paused his paperwork and looked up. What's got the gatekeeping team leader so worked up? The blue uniformed man scratched his head awkwardly before replying. Well, one of my team members got pulled out. He's a newbie who joined just 4 days ago. His name is Shin Sang-hyun. Don't worry about it, Yoon Dae-kyung replied nonchalantly. Shin Sang-hyun has already been transferred to the player team, but instead of calming down, the gatekeeping team leader was stunned. His expression turned alarmed as he blurted out, "What? He joined the player team instead of the gatekeeping team? I approved the transfer myself. Is there a problem?" Yoon Dae-kyung admitted without hesitation. The blue uniformed man immediately raised his voice in protest. Of course there's a problem. He just awakened recently, and he hasn't even graduated from the player academy yet. You can't throw a kid like him into your team. If you do that, the whole squad will be unbalanced. How am I supposed to? Before he could finish his rant, Yoon Dae-kyung let out a sigh and took a step forward, standing right in front of him. His piercing gaze locked onto the gatekeeping team leader. The gatekeeping team handles all logistical matters, don't they? Yoon Dae-kyung muttered. That includes my team and the system's contribution distribution, right? His eyes narrowed sharply. Radiating an oppressive aura, the gatekeeping team leader gulped nervously. Realizing the intimidating pressure exuding from Yoon Dae-kyung, awkwardly scratching his head, he forced out a weak chuckle. Haha, oh of course, my apologies. With that, the man quickly scurried away, watching the man's retreating figure. Yoon Dae-kyung scoffed and muttered with disdain. Seriously, if you give those damn gatekeepers a chance to talk, this is exactly what happens. Balance? What a load of crap. Beside him, a young blonde awakened looked slightly surprised and asked, "But sir, why did you let him in? I didn't expect that at all." Hearing this, Yoon Dae-kyung smirked mockingly. What? You too? Ha. If someone has to die, it'll be him, not us. He needs to cause trouble and die that way. Those damn gatekeepers will finally shut up, and just like that, we'll maintain our own value. Besides, what can a clueless rookie do? Understanding the implication, the blonde subordinate burst out laughing. Oh haha, I had no idea that was your plan. At that exact moment, while they were still laughing among themselves, A voice suddenly interrupted them. "Hello, starting today, I'll be working as a player. My name is Shin Sang-hyun." The moment he introduced himself, every pair of eyes in the area locked onto him. None of them particularly friendly. The Gatekeeper's team members glared at Sang-hyun, their eyes filled with resentment, while the awakened players eyed him with cunning amusement. Being stared at so intensely by so many people made Sang-hyun's scalp tingle slightly. "I expected this, but they're not even trying to hide their emotions." From Yoon Kyung's perspective, he quickly masked his true expression and put on a bright smile. "Finally, our new recruit has arrived. Sang-hyun, right? Nice to meet you. I figured you'd be late for your first day as a player." As he spoke, his gaze shifted to the weapon Sang-hyun was carrying, and he narrowed his eyes slightly. "Oh, your weapon? Is that a long sword?" Opposite him, Sang-hyun put on a polite smile and explained, "Yes, that's right. I've learned from watching a lot of YouTube videos." Yoon Kyung raised an eyebrow and gave a pointed reminder. "You do know that the longsword is one of the hardest weapons to wield, right?" Sang-hyun clenched his fist and responded, his voice filled with determination. "I'll do my best to protect myself. Trust me." Sang-hyun's response seemed to amuse the captain. With a wide grin, Yoon Deacon threw an arm around his shoulder and spoke enthusiastically. "Haha, good spirit, that's what I like to see. A real man should have that kind of drive. Just like me." After saying that, he turned to address the rest of the team. "All right, let's get this dungeon run started. Time to fight." Hearing his command, the other team members cheered loudly, raising their fists into the air. With Sang-hyun now in the group, everyone quickly checked their equipment before stepping into the massive portal. One by one, meanwhile, Yoon Kyung stood off to the side, making sure the entire team entered in an orderly manner. As he watched Sang-hyun's back, his expression remained neutral, but inside he was full of scorn. He learned from YouTube? What a joke. Does he think dungeons are some kind of game? Just because he awakened and became a player, he's already getting cocky? Looks like he's asking for death. A cold smirk formed in his mind as he thought, given the conquest strategy I have in place, this orc dungeon is known as the Wailing Wall for rookies. He'll learn his place soon enough. Stupid brat. That was what Yoon Kyung firmly believed. But just moments after stepping inside, his face turned deathly pale. Sweat began to pour down his forehead as he took in the shocking sight in front of him. Because lying all across the dungeon floor, in a horrifying mess, were the corpses of countless orcs, completely obliterated. And the cause of this carnage? None other than Sang-hyun himself. In that instant, Yoon Kyung's mind screamed in disbelief. This is insane. Who the hell is this guy? Orcs, these creatures almost exclusively appear in games, novels, and fantasy films. Because we've seen them so often, it's easy to assume they're weak. Compared to other monsters like dragons, they certainly are dumb, violent, and little else. That's why new players, full of arrogance, often rush into battles with orcs without thinking twice. In reality, their attributes are straightforward. On average, an orc stands around 250 centimeters tall and weighs roughly 180 kilograms. Their sheer size alone grants them overwhelming strength compared to humans. That's why orcs have earned the infamous nickname, the Wailing Wall. Now shifting the scene to inside the dungeon, the setting resembled the long corridors of an ancient fortress. As they moved forward, a dark-haired man glanced back and reminded the protagonist, Shin Sang-hyun, "Don't expect any special treatment just because you're new. From now on, you're on your own." Hearing this, Sang-hyun's eyes flickered with mild surprise. But before he could react, the captain of the porter squad spat on the ground and scoffed from behind. Just awakened and already acting like a real player. Ha, arrogant little brat. For most, those words would stain. But Sang-hyun had lived to the age of 55. He had endured countless hardships, beatings, and the cruelties of society. He wasn't the type to take offense easily. Instead, he simply scratched his head and chuckled. "Haha, I'll do my best. Looks like no one here is kind to rookies." He muttered inwardly. Yet, for some reason, the dark-haired man in armor seemed particularly irritable. Despite Sang-hyun's light-hearted response, he still snapped. "It's not about doing your best, it's about doing it right. Trying your best is useless." Sang-hyun's expression barely changed. His attitude is calm as ever. After a brief pause, he asked, "So if we run into monsters, am I allowed to fight on the front lines?" The armored man scowled. "Are you out of your mind?" But before he could continue berating Sang-hyun, his expression suddenly shifted to one of alarm. His voice rang out urgently. "Wait, there's an orc." Upon hearing those words, Sang-hyun and the leader of the porters both immediately turned around. Sure enough, a green-skinned orc with bulging muscles was closing in on them from behind. Gripping a massive axe, instead of feeling fear, Sang-hyun felt a surge of excitement. "So this is my first battle since my regression? Leave it to me," he thought to himself. Before his words had even fully left his mouth, the armored guy had already rushed forward, shield in hand slamming directly into the orc's body, stopping its movement temporarily. Seeing this, The black-haired man's face twisted in shock as he yelled at Sang-hyun. "You idiot, are you out of your damn mind? You're moving that slow and you think you can use a great sword properly?" Sang-hyun simply responded with a calm reminder. "You really don't have to help me. You know. Then quit talking nonsense and prove your skills." The black-haired man shouted again, voice filled with frustration, but in his flustered state. He failed to notice that the orc had already raised its axe high. Preparing to strike, Sang-hyun quickly pointed it out. All right, just look in front of you. You should be grateful, you little punk." The black-haired man scoffed as he turned back, only to realize, too late, that the orc's axe was already inches from his face. He could even smell the rusty metal and the dried blood still clinging to its surface. For a split second, he thought he was done for. But just before the deadly blow could land, Yoon Dae-kyun, the leader of the team, barreled in like a human tank. With sheer brute force, he slammed his shield directly into the orc's face, sending the massive creature flying backward and crashing into the ground, leaving a small crater upon impact. Seeing that the orc was temporarily incapacitated, Yoon Dae-kyun took the opportunity to turn and bellow at the two of them. "You guys think this is a damn playground? Focus." Sorry," the black-haired man stammered, while the others looked on, amazed by Yoon Dae-kyun's quick reflexes. Up ahead, Yoon Dae-kyun drew his sword and took a battle-ready stance. "Fall back, I'll handle this." At the same time, the orc had already recovered, letting out a terrifying roar before charging forward in a blind frenzy. With full force, its axe came crashing down against Yoon Dae-kyun's shield, creating a deafening clang that echoed through the air. However, Yoon Dae-kyun truly lived up to his title as the team leader. His strength was anything but ordinary. The moment he blocked the orc's attack, he immediately drove his sword straight into the left side of the monster's chest, causing thick streams of green blood to pour out. Behind him, the rest of the team clenched their fists, excitement lighting up their faces. That was incredible. The captain pierced its heart. Is it dead? The murmurs of victory started to spread, but things didn't go as they expected. Despite having a sword embedded deep in its chest, the orc suddenly grinned, a wild, exhilarated expression, as if the injury was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Letting out a deafening roar, it gripped its axe tightly and swung it forward with tremendous force. The sheer power of the strike shattered the ground beneath them, leaving a small crater in its wake. Fortunately, Yoon Dae-kyun had sensed the danger just in time. Instead of attempting to block the blow, he instinctively leapt backward to create some distance. From Sang-hyun's perspective, as he watched the two muscular figures clashing up ahead, his experience quickly told him there was a problem. Yoon Dae-kyun was likely the highest leveled fighter here, but at best he was only around level 50. Nowhere near strong enough to land a fatal strike on the orc. Shifting back to the battlefield, Yoon Dae-kyun let out a fierce battle cry, tightening his grip on his sword before launching himself forward. Seizing the opportunity while the orc was still reacting to its previous attack, he drove his blade deep into its body once more. And this time, with such a perfectly executed critical strike, no matter how resilient the orc was, there was no surviving it, as the massive creature finally collapsed to the ground. Lifeless, the lower-ranked hunters around them erupted into cheers. He did it. He actually took down an orc by himself. Hearing their excitement, Yoon Dae-kyun let out a small breath of relief before turning back to check on his team. "That wasn't much, you guys all right? Of course you're seriously reliable, Captain." The older awakened ones responded with cheerful grins. "Good, then let's move out." The moment those words left his mouth, before the group even had a chance to take a single step forward, eerie, blood-curdling screams rang out from the distance, immediately drawing their attention. As they turned around, they were met with an intimidating sight: a group of red-skinned orcs marching toward them, their expressions full of aggression, as if they were actively seeking a fight. Seeing the sharp weapons glinting in the orcs' hands, cold sweat began to trickle down the faces of the older awakened ones. "Those are armored orcs? Captain, what do we do now?" Taking in the enemy's numbers and their well-equipped state, Yoon Dae-kyun immediately started reconsidering his options. "I think it'd be best for us to retreat and ensure the team's safety," he said, though deep down he felt a pang of regret. "TCH, we finally took one down and now an entire squad shows up." Unlike the others, who were paralyzed by fear, Sang-hyun's eyes lit up at the sight of the approaching monsters. Without hesitation, he made a bold suggestion. "Can I give it a shot?" His words instantly earned him a series of outraged glares from the weaker hunters around him. What the hell is this guy saying? "Hey Shin Sang-hyun, have you lost your damn mind?" "Apologies, Captain. I should have trained him properly before bringing him here." On the side, Yoon Dae-kyun let out a deep sigh and attempted to reason with him. "Sang-hyun, I get that you're excited about awakening, but..." Before he could finish his sentence, Sang-hyun had already gripped his greatsword and launched himself forward like a gust of wind. The entire group stood frozen in shock. "Hey, you're gonna get yourself killed," Yoon Dae-kyun called after him. But contrary to everyone's expectations, the moment Sang-hyun closed the distance, He swung his great sword with a single devastating strike, effortlessly slicing the young red-skinned orc clean in half. For a brief moment, an eerie silence blanketed the battlefield. Only Sang-hyun's voice broke through. "Great swords, man. These things are amazing." Behind him, after several seconds of stunned silence, the so-called weaker hunters started sweating profusely. Their eyes were filled with disbelief, as if they had just witnessed a prehistoric beast come back to life. Shin Sang-hyun, what the hell just happened? And a lead orc was cut in half? Even if he's using a greatsword, that's still way too absurd. Ignoring their murmurs, Sang-hyun casually rested his greatsword on his shoulder and chuckled. Am I still level 1 or something? That swing wasn't as smooth as I wanted. Player information. Name Shin Sang-hyun. Level 1. Title. None. Constellation. None. Unique skill. Artifact absorption. Artifacts consumed 1. Health 25. Energy 20. Experience 40. On the other side, the remaining orcs clenched their teeth, veins bulging across their furious faces as they watched their comrade get effortlessly cut down. Then, as if some unspoken command had passed between them, they all roared in unison and charged at Sang-hyun like rabid dogs lunging for a bite. Seeing this, Sang-hyun tightened his grip around his sword, his voice cold and unwavering. My level may be low, but I've got experience to spare. And just like that, both sides dashed past each other in a blur. With a single, almost effortless swing of his great sword, Sang-hyun sliced through the orcs with ease, their bodies cleaving apart like fragile dolls. However, at that very moment, an orc wearing a bone mask lunged at him, its sharp axe arcing through the air, aiming straight for the protagonist. Without breaking a sweat, Sang-hyun twisted his body slightly, sidestepping the strike with minimal movement. Then, in one swift motion, he swung his sword upward, severing the orc's arm and splitting its face in two. Do you have any idea how many monsters like you I've killed in my younger days? He scoffed, his voice dripping with amusement. Meanwhile, the awakened hunters in the back could only stare in utter disbelief. Is that really Shin Sang-hyun? He might just wipe out all of them at this rate. This is insane. Someone muttered in shock. Back on the battlefield, Sang-hyun now stood face to face with the leader of the orc squad. That just leaves you, Orc Warlord. His eyes locked onto his final opponent. Unlike the others, this orc was a towering figure, dwarfing even the already massive members of its species. But it wasn't just its size that made it dangerous. It was clad in full armor, heavily equipped for battle. The warlord scanned the battlefield, its bloodshot eyes taking in the remains of its fallen kin. Rage swelled within its chest, and with a deafening roar, it lifted its massive spiked club and swung it downward with overwhelming force, aiming to crush Sang-hyun in a single blow. Seeing this, the protagonist wasted no time and leapt to the side, dodging the attack in a blink. The unfortunate wall behind him, however, wasn't so lucky. It exploded into rubble under the sheer force of the orc's strike, but Sang-hyun didn't even glance at the destruction. Mid-air, he twisted his body and swung his greatsword in a clean, decisive arc, slicing straight through the warlord's thick neck. However, the wound Sang-hyun had just inflicted was too shallow, not nearly enough to take down the monstrous orc. Seeing this, the squad leader, clearly worried, shouted, "Its skin is too thick. Our attacks are useless. We're screwed." Before his words even fully settled in the air, the orc leader took advantage of the moment Sang-hyun landed. With a fierce roar, it swung its massive arm backward, bringing its colossal war club down towards Sang-hyun's much smaller frame. Yet Sang-hyun showed no sign of concern whatsoever. "Calm down, will you?" he said casually, his voice steady. At the same time, he activated his skill. Demon Breaker. System notification. Hidden skill activated. Status abnormality blocked. 15 seconds skill level 1. Effect when attacking a target, be it human or monster. The target will be immobilized for 2 seconds. The success rate and duration depend on the target's resistance level. The moment the skill took effect, the orc leader's entire body froze in place. Its weapon, which had been mid-swain, halted abruptly, and its massive frame trembled violently as it struggled against the invisible force restraining it. Seeing this, Sang-hyun grinned, his eyes narrowing in amusement. "Yeah, just stay put like that," he chuckled. Across from him, the orc leader let out a panicked howl, but before it could even comprehend what was happening, Sang-hyun's razor-sharp blade had already sliced clean through its thick neck, sending its head flying. The orc's massive body collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud, while its severed head rolled to a stop at the feet of Yoon Dakin, who stood watching from a short distance away. The sheer brutality of the scene, left everyone in stunned silence. What the hell did I just witness? Someone muttered. Didn't he just awaken 3 days ago? Another stammered. And that disruption skill he used, isn't that supposed to be an advanced ability? I thought even high-ranked players could only stun an enemy for, like, 1.5 seconds at most, and he's wielding a great sword like he's been doing it his whole life. Should we ask him what kind of YouTube videos he's been watching? A chorus of whispers and murmurs of admiration spread through the group. Meanwhile, Yoondae King stood frozen, his mind racing with thoughts. Watching Sang-hyun display such overwhelming strength was nothing short of baffling. He muttered under his breath, did he really just use a high-level skill? And against an armored orc? No less. He's only been awakened for a few days, hasn't he? Where the hell did he even get a skill like that? The more he thought about it, the more intrigued he became. System notification. Congratulations, you have leveled up. You have met the requirements to receive a title. You have obtained the title. Brave Little Pup. Title rank F. Effect +5 evasion. Seeing the unexpected reward from the system, Sang-hyun felt both surprised and excited. I wasn't really paying much attention to leveling up, but I didn't expect to get a title and a bonus effect on top of that. This is amazing. The system then continued with another notification. You have unallocated stat points. Please choose a stat to enhance. Available points 1. At the same time, the system interface shifted to his attribute screen. Seeing this, Sang-hyun reached his hand forward to allocate his points. I already know which stat I want to increase. In my past life, I learned this lesson far too late. Luck directly affects skill accuracy and item drop rates, and right now, I need it more than anything. Without hesitation, he immediately allocated his newly earned free stat point into luck. However, before he could take a moment to analyze things further, Yoondae King suddenly stepped forward from behind and started questioning him. Are you really Shin Sang-hyun? That skill you just used, disruption. Where did you get it from? Sang-hyun found himself slightly caught off guard by the question. I just regressed and I've only been using my skills for good. But even so, I can't exactly tell him the truth. With that in mind, he quickly made something up. I had it the moment I awakened, he replied casually. Of course, Yoondae King wasn't going to accept such a vague answer. He immediately pointed a finger at Sang-hyun and pressed further. Do you even hear yourself? That doesn't make any sense. Stop trying to dodge the question. Are you absolutely sure? Did you just get lucky and stumble upon a diamond tier artifact or something even higher? His gaze then shifted toward the great sword in Sang-hyun's hands, clearly assuming that all of Sang-hyun's strength came from the weapon. Noticing the suspicion in Yoondae Kyung's eyes, Sang-hyun simply extended his sword toward him and smirked. Would you like to check it out for yourself? On this side, Captain Yoondae Kyung was slightly taken aback by how casually Sang-hyun handed over his weapon. However, he still accepted the great sword to inspect it. Yeah, alright, if you're offering. Then, with that, he focused on examining the weapon, and in an instant, all of its details were displayed clearly before his eyes. Slaughter Greatsword Type 2-handed weapon class Greatsword Attack Power 50 None. A standard greatsword with a simple design, offering no special abilities. As soon as he saw the information provided by the system, Yoondae King practically screamed like his house was on fire. What the hell? This is seriously just a normal greatsword? That means that skill was really yours? His jaw clenched and veins started to pop on his forehead as he silently cursed in his head. Son of a, I've been raiding dungeons for 2 damn years, grinding my way up to level 50, and my skills still aren't as good as his? If this keeps up, then the reward distribution today. Before he could spiral any further, a teammate suddenly shouted, "Captain, the sub-boss just showed up." Hearing that, the rest of the team turned their eyes toward Yoondae King. Waiting for his command, his face darkened slightly, but he quickly gave out orders. All right, let's move. Then he turned to Sang-hyun and said, thanks to you, we had an easier time clearing out that small fry. But don't get cocky and end up dead. A flashy skill like yours won't do jack against the demonic orc we're about to face. Sang-hyun tilted his head slightly, finding Yoondae Kyung's attitude a little strange. However, as if remembering something, a smirk slowly formed on his lips. I almost forgot why I joined this team right after regressing. This team distributes rewards based on contribution. With that, he suddenly called out, "Hey, Captain!" Yoondae King turned back with a frown. Sang-hyun flashed a bright grin and asked, "If I kill the demonic orc myself, can I take the artifact as my reward?" The red crystal, a rare loot that could only be obtained by defeating the demonic orc. Even then, it was known to be incredibly difficult to acquire. No, rather, the drop rate was absurdly low. However, in his past life, after his team had failed to take down the demonic orc, they had the rare chance to witness another team successfully obtain the red crystal. Sang-hyun still remembered that moment vividly. The sight of that party standing over the slain demonic orc, holding the precious crystal in their hands. Whoa, Captain. Congrats. How'd you even get that? That thing would sell for a fortune at the market. Isn't it the only artifact with the delay skill? The other party members had stared at the red crystal with eyes full of greed. Seeing this, their captain had waved them off, looking slightly uncomfortable. Hey, enough. You're spitting all over me. Delay. That was the skill Sang-hyun desperately needed right now. Brushing aside his memories, he turned back to the present and repeated his request. His words left the entire team momentarily stunned. Seeing their reaction, Sang-hyun quickly continued his explanation. If I remember correctly, this team distributes rewards based on contribution, right? So if I kill the boss myself, there shouldn't be any problem. Yeah? At this, Yoon Ki fell silent. That silence made a drop of sweat trickle down Sang-hyun's face. I need to get the delay skill as soon as possible. It's crucial for the events that are coming, but to these guys, I must look like some arrogant rookie trying to bite off more than he can chew. There's no way they'd take me seriously. As expected, two of the weaker team members, oblivious to their own lack of strength, glared at him like a couple of debt collectors. Are you out of your damn mind? Who the hell do you think you are? You think killing a few orcs makes you hot shit? Now you're talking about loot distribution? Before they could go on, Yoon calmly raised a hand, cutting them off. Hey, calm down. Then he turned to Sang-hyun with a sharp gaze. Fine, do whatever you want. But there's a catch. You only get to fight the boss if we fail to defeat it first. Only then will you be allowed to enter the dungeon and take it on yourself. Understood? His warning was clear, but just the fact that Yoon agreed to distribute loot based on contribution was enough to make Sang-hyun feel relieved. That was easier than I thought. To confirm, Sang-hyun asked again. So that means I'll be sitting out of this fight, right? Do whatever you want. Yoon snapped before turning away and marching ahead. Deep down, he despised Sang-hyun's attitude. Who the hell does this punk think he is? Acting all high and mighty just because he has one overpowered skill. I'll clear this dungeon myself and shut him up. I'll show him that experience is what really matters on the battlefield. With that determination fueling him, Yoon raised his hand and pushed open the massive door in front of them. Inside the dimly lit chamber, a massive orc wielding an enormous battle axe had already been waiting for them. At the same time, a system notification popped up for the party. You have entered the mid-boss's chamber. The demonic orc berserker was nothing like the orcs they had fought before. Standing, towering, and muscular, its purple skin rippled with sheer brute strength. Curved goat-like horns jutted out from its skull and right in the center of its chest. Embedded deep within its flesh was a gleaming red crystal, heavy iron chains wrapped around its body, clinking ominously as it moved. This was the mid-boss, the bloodthirsty demonic orc. Seeing the beast's menacing form, Yoon expression turned serious. Gripping his sword tightly, he barked out commands. Everyone, prepare for battle, surround it, and attack from behind. Even though the monster looked intimidating, Yoon wasn't particularly worried. He had heard rumors about this boss. Looks tough, but I heard it's actually easy to bring down. As for fighting it solo, too bad, Shin Sang-hyun. You won't even get the chance. Just picturing Sang-hyun's shocked and helpless face as they took down the boss made Yoon smirk. But fantasies were just that, fantasies. Reality hit hard and fast. Yoon snapped back to his senses and shouted, "I'll take the lead." With that command, the entire team charged forward, using him as the spearhead against the bloodthirsty demonic orc. Moments later, all of Yoon hopes of victory had completely crumbled. As he slowly regained consciousness from his dazed state, he mumbled in disbelief. What just happened? Nearby, Sang-hyun stood casually, leaning against the dungeon wall. Seeing Yoon wake up, he simply clicked his tongue and shook his head. I was a little worried when they rushed in like that, but who would have thought they'd just charge straight at it like idiots? This is exactly why we failed in my past life too. Meanwhile, the other surviving party members scrambled over to their downed leader, hurriedly helping him up. Panic filled their voices. What do we do now, Captain? If this keeps up, we're all dead. Yoon didn't respond immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the demonic orc ahead, brows furrowed in confusion. Not just this boss, but even the previous orcs. Why were they all so damn strong? Shit, I never should have trusted that market intel. Gritting his teeth at the overwhelming strength of their opponent, Yoon was forced to make a bitter decision. Forget beating this thing today. We're retreating for now. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed something strange. Sang-hyun was still standing there calmly, arms crossed, a relaxed smile on his face. Yoon stomach churned. That look, that attitude, he still wanted to fight the boss? Unlike Sang-hyun's unshaken demeanor, a blonde-haired party member was visibly fuming, grinding his teeth like Sang-hyun owed him money. Are you insane? What the hell is wrong with you? Before he could continue his rant, Yoon swung an arm out to silence him. Enough. Everyone, fall back. It has terrible peripheral vision. We'll slip past its blind spot. The rest of the party exhaled in relief. Thank God, someone muttered, as Yoon Ki turned away, blood dripping down his face. He cast one last glance at Sang-hyun. "Shin Sang-hyun, I've already warned you. If you die, don't blame me." In response to those words, he let out a faint chuckle before slowly drawing the sword from his back, his voice steady with confidence. "No need to worry. I'm not dying today." Facing the bloodthirsty demon orc, standing across from him, as if sensing the killing intent radiating from Sang-hyun, the monstrous orc boss clenched its massive battle axe tightly. Its eyes burned with fury as it charged forward like a raging tank, exuding an overwhelming aura of aggression. Seeing this, Sang-hyun took a deep breath, steadying himself. His grip on the sword instinctively tightened as a thought flashed through his mind. If this fight was purely about stats, I wouldn't stand a chance against this thing. But with all the experience I've accumulated, that's not an issue at all. With that, Sang-hyun swiftly swung his sword to the right, deflecting the orc's battle axe to the side in an instant. Clang! A piercing metallic crash rang through the air as steel collided with steel. The demon orc let out a low, guttural growl, clearly startled. Meanwhile, the awakened fighters who had been preparing to retreat suddenly stopped in their tracks. Hearing that loud metallic clash, they turned back, exchanging puzzled looks. Did I just hear a loud clang? Wait, did he just knock the orc's axe away? Back on the battlefield, Sang-hyun flexed his now numb wrist and let out a casual complaint. "Damn, my hand's gone numb, so I can only knock away its strikes." Then, as if spotting something fascinating, his gaze locked onto the glowing red gemstone embedded in the demon orc's chest. A smirk spread across his face. It's been a long time, that red gemstone. The ultimate combo. Sang-hyun's obsession with the red gemstone wasn't without reason. It held a special effect that, when combined with his delay skill and the title skill, Demon Crusher, could create something truly terrifying. Currently, Demon Crusher's stun effect only lasted 2 seconds, which was already useful. But improving it? That was tough. However, with his core skill, Artifact Devourer, he could merge the effects of different abilities, and that gave him an idea. What if I could stack the stun effect from Demon Crusher? This could be the perfect skill combination, an infinite stun lock. If I can obtain delay, this becomes totally possible. The mere thought of paralyzing enemies endlessly while they remained completely helpless sent waves of excitement surging through him. His smirk widened as he confidently raised his sword. "Well, what are you waiting for? Come at me," as if it understood his taunt. Thick veins pulsed across the demon orc's forehead like writhing worms. With an ear-splitting roar, it launched itself straight at Sang-hyun, its monstrous energy surging as it prepared to strike with devastating force. The perfect opportunity, but this was exactly what Sang-hyun had been hoping for. Perfect. Just what I wanted. If the monster came at him recklessly like this, he'd have the perfect chance to uncover its weaknesses. With that thought, Sang-hyun charged forward without hesitation. His sword sliced cleanly across the orc's side, leaving behind a deep wound. Thick streams of dark purple blood spurted from the gash, spilling onto the battlefield. At the same time, Sang-hyun activated his Demon Crusher skill. The demonic orc froze in place. Stunned for 2 whole seconds, its trembling hands couldn't even grip its battle axe anymore, and the massive weapon slipped from its grasp, crashing into the ground and forming a small crater upon impact. Disbelief from the spectators. The other Awakeners, still watching from behind, stared in shock, their eyes practically popping out of their heads. This feels like watching some kind of fantasy movie. This makes no sense. The Demon Crusher's stun actually worked on a mid-tier boss? That's just overpowered. Yoon Ki muttered under his breath, unable to process what he was witnessing. A swift counterattack. Meanwhile, Sang-hyun let out a smug chuckle. "I know orcs are simple-minded, but you're a demon orc, aren't you?" But before he could finish his sentence, his voice suddenly cut off. Somehow, against all odds, the demon orc had already shaken off a stun effect and launched a vicious kick straight at him. Reacting on instinct, Sang-hyun raised his great sword just in time, using it as a shield to absorb the blow. Even so, the sheer force of the impact sent his body flying backward, his sword dragging across the ground and carving a deep groove into the battlefield. As he steadied himself, his brows furrowed in frustration. Damn it, I forgot about that. Its regeneration ability. His gaze locked onto the orc's wound, except now, it wasn't there anymore. A faint green glow pulsed across its body, and within seconds, the deep wound he had inflicted had completely healed. The worst part? That very same regeneration ability had allowed the demon orc to break free from the stun effect far earlier than expected. This is going to be way tougher than I thought. I need 15 seconds before I can stun it again. That's why I needed delay. But if I can't keep it stunned, I'll just have to take it down the old-fashioned way. The battle rages on. Across from him, The demonic orc tightened its grip on its battle axe once more, its bloodlust burning hotter than ever. The wound Sang Yoon had inflicted only served to enrage it further. Now, the monster had only one thought on its mind: crush him. A swift and decisive victory. Yet again, the demon orc's mighty axe strike was effortlessly deflected. Sang Yoon barely twitched a muscle as he guided the attack downward, burying the axe into the ground with a casual flick of his sword. "Man, this is easier than I thought," he said with a grin. And so their clash continued, sword against axe, attack after attack. Each collision sent shockwaves rippling through the air, shaking the battlefield. The spectators' doubt. Meanwhile, a blonde awakener stood off to the side, completely uninterested in the fight. Instead, he turned toward his commander, urging, "Commander, we really need to leave. Even that bastard skill is useless." Yoon Dae-kyun, however, seemed stunned, his voice laced with confusion. What? His stun skill isn't working? But the level gap is barely noticeable. Then why the hell? Why does he look so damn confident? Is this guy really just a newbie? The thought gnawed at him. Something wasn't adding up. The finishing move. Back on the battlefield, Sang Hyun was getting bored. Alright, let's wrap this up. He had been in situations like this before. If he wasn't strong enough, then he just had to put everything into one single decisive strike. Forget trying to slash the enemy apart. Instead, use their own power against them. Gripping his sword tightly, Sang Yoon waited, his eyes sharpened, watching every little movement the demon orc made. Then, the perfect opening. With a flash of movement, he lunged forward. The orc charged at full speed, unaware that it was running straight into its own demise. Sang Yoon's blade pierced cleanly through its chest, straight through the heart. The orc let out a final, gurgling gasp, coughing up a mouthful of blood before collapsing lifelessly. A system announcement. At the same time, a system notification appeared before his eyes. "Congratulations! You have defeated the mid-boss Demon Orc. You have leveled up. You have earned the title Demon Hunter Rank E. Demon Hunter Rank E title effect. When facing mid-bosses or higher, your healing ability increases by 5x. Reading through the effect, Sang Yoon couldn't stop himself from grinning. 2 titles already? Is this what it feels like to play solo? Just as he was about to revel in his victory, his eyes caught movement. Commander Yoon Dae-kyung was slowly approaching, his wide eyes still filled with disbelief. Even now, he struggled to accept the reality before him. The very same mid-boss that had wiped out his entire team had just been crushed effortlessly by this so-called newbie. A tactical performance. Seeing the stunned expressions of everyone around him, Sang Yoon forced out a crooked smile. There's only one way to avoid unnecessary trouble like this, and so he activated his amateur acting skills, raising his voice in a dramatic wail. "Oh no, I almost died. What would I have done without the commander dealing damage?" The perfect bluff. The blonde awakener, who had no clue what was going on, immediately turned to his commander with an admiring gaze. "I knew it, Commander. When did you even land a hit on that thing?" Yoon Dae-kyun, on the other hand, wasn't an idiot. He knew damn well that he hadn't even scratched the mid-boss. His gaze shifted toward Sang Hyun, filled with confusion. Meanwhile, Sang Hyun smirked internally. "Come on, you're not that dumb, right? I'm throwing you a bone here. Take it." The silent agreement. His gaze drifted to the red crystal on the ground, and he instantly understood Sang Hyun's intention. "Keep your promise." Is that what he's saying? Letting out a defeated sigh, Yoon Dae-kyung mumbled to himself, "I lost. Completely." But the moment of hesitation vanished as he straightened his posture. With renewed confidence, he turned toward the team and barked out orders. "Attention, everyone. The mid-boss is down. Now we need to prepare for the final boss." "Yes, sir." The squad responded in unison, moving forward. With that, the group marched up the stairs, preparing for the next floor. As they ascended, a few of them couldn't resist sneering at Sang Yoon. "Ha! I knew it. There's no way that kid took it down alone, right? Man, I wish I had that stun skill." "Forget it. It didn't even work on the mid-boss." Sang Yoon ignored the chatter, his focus entirely elsewhere. The true prize. His gaze locked onto the red crystal. The very thing he had been waiting for. Alright, the audience is gone, time to eat this thing. Red crystal, rarity silver type special equipment, special effect, delay, attributes, plus 10 vitality, plus 10 strength. Description, a rare item obtainable only by defeating the demon orc. It contains condensed resilience and endurance. A smirk formed on his lips. Let's see what this thing can really do. A strange feast. The moment Sang Hyun absorbed the red crystal, his consciousness was pulled into a subconscious void. Before him sat a steaming dish, spicy cold noodles with jellied meat, prepared by the super chef. Just looking at the dish, an uncontrollable hunger surged through him. Without hesitation, Sang Yoon grabbed the bowl, lifted his chopsticks and began eating. As he devoured each strand of noodles, a series of system notifications appeared. You are now ready to absorb the red crystal. Absorbing red crystal, based on the base absorption rate of 20% for silver tier items. Your strength and vitality have increased by +2. You have obtained the special effect, Delay. You can now embed this effect into one of your skills. A bead of sweat rolled down Sang-yoon's temple. Why do I feel so uneasy about this? Which skill would you like to combine with Delay? Added to Demon Smash. Immediately. The system confirmed the combination. The delay effect has been added to Demon Smash. If you use Demon Smash before the first stun expires, the effect duration will extend as follows. Second and third hit, 90% success rate. Fourth hit, 60% success rate. Fifth hit, 30% success rate. The moment the message ended, Sang-hyun was thrown out of the subconscious space. He stared at the system screen in disbelief, eyes wide in shock. A guaranteed 4-second stun? I only thought it was theoretically possible, but it actually works? To confirm, he rubbed his eyes and double-checked the system logs. An unexpected proposal. Just then, a voice from behind interrupted his thoughts. Can we talk for a moment? Turning around, Sang-hyun saw Yoon Dae-gyun standing behind him. What now? Sure, what's up? Sang-hyun asked. Yoon Dae-gyun's tone was hesitant, but he spoke clearly. Right ahead is the final boss room. Sang-hyun raised an eyebrow. You want me to stay behind? But what the captain said next shocked him. No. I'd be a failure of a leader if I didn't know how to use a talent like you. Let's work together. Shin Sang-hyun. As he spoke, he extended his hand. It seemed that after Sang-hyun helped him save face, he had fully regained his composure and was now leading like a proper commander. Sang-hyun had no reason to refuse. Haha. But my conditions stay the same, he grinned, clasping Yoon Dae-kyung's hand. Yeah, I know. The captain chuckled in response. The final boss room. At that moment, the blonde awakener approached, arms crossed. Are we finally heading in? Yoon Dae-kyung nodded firmly. Yeah, from this point on, everyone needs to stay alert. But as they moved forward, the blonde suddenly clicked his tongue, shooting a glaring look at Sang-hyun. This left the protagonist utterly confused. The hell's his problem? Did he eat expired food or something? Meanwhile, Yoon Dae-kyung didn't seem to notice the blonde's sour attitude. With a bright grin, he patted Sang-hyun's shoulder. Let's finish this up. Drinks are on me after. Time flew by quickly as Sang-hyun's team finally stepped into the last boss room of dungeon number 85. Their opponent this time was a monstrous orc with ashen gray skin. Across its body, strange spiral-shaped runes pulsed faintly, and in its grip was a blood-stained spiked mace. Still dripping from its last victim, an overwhelming savage aura radiated from the creature. This was the final boss, the frenzied orc. A captain's resolve. From Yoon Dae-kyung's perspective, after witnessing the sheer power of the previous boss, the demonic orc, he no longer underestimated this dungeon. A cold sweat dripped down his face as he took a determined step forward. Looking at Sang-hyun, I'll go first. However, before the captain could recklessly charge in and get himself obliterated, Sang-hyun unsheathed his sword and shook his head. Stay close to me. Dae-kyun hesitated. Right now, you shouldn't. But before he could finish, Sang-hyun exhaled deeply, lost in thought. The frenzied orc has lower skill resistance than the demonic orc, which means it's easier to stun. As long as I stay calm and attack properly, this shouldn't be a problem. But stay close to me? Since when did I start saying things like that with such confidence? Back then, I was always scared. Even when I grew older, I barely managed to survive. I can't live like that again. I have to change my weak past and my future, and to do that, I'll show everyone here my overwhelming strength. An overwhelming display. With that resolve burning in his heart, Sang-hyun swung his sword down, slashing deep into the frenzied orc's torso. The wound tore from its abdomen to its shoulder, causing the beast to howl in agony. Without hesitation, Sang-hyun activated his skill, Demon Smash. A shockwave of force crashed into the orc, leaving it staggered and unable to move. It stunned for 4 seconds, he shouted. Without missing a beat, Yoon Dae-kyung rushed forward, leading the charge. Now get him. With the boss completely immobilized, the entire team unleashed a relentless barrage of attacks, overwhelming the beast before it could even showcase its strength. And just like that, before the orc could land a single devastating strike, it collapsed. Dead. Dungeon complete. The moment its massive body hit the ground, a system notification rang out. Congratulations! You have defeated the final boss, the frenzied orc. Congratulations! You have completed the dungeon of the Red Orc Altar. Recognition and a glimpse of the future. As the lifeless body of the frenzied orc lay in a pool of its own blood, some members of the party couldn't help but remark, wasn't this dungeon way too easy? I didn't even have to use a single potion. Another adventurer chimed in, grinning. See? I told you that stun skill was amazing. Meanwhile, a group of porters huddled together, whispering among themselves, while stealing glances at Sang-yoon. Do you think he has his own gate? Should I ask him? Huh? I was about to ask first. Another porter scoffed. So what? I need to make a living too. Their team captain retorted, shaking his head. A fast-changing world. Observing how quickly people's attitudes shifted, Sang-hyun couldn't help but feel a little dizzy. These guys flip sides so fast. I wasn't even planning to do anything for them. Just as he finished that thought, a series of system notifications appeared before his eyes. Congratulations, you have leveled up. You have obtained the rank D title, Overwhelming Power. Effect. Status effect durations are increased by 10%. Reading the title description, Sang-yoon nodded in satisfaction. Not bad. A 4.4 second stun? That's crazy. In my past life, I never earned a single title. But as he thought about that, his expression darkened slightly. Even so, this is nothing compared to him. Du Kyung-soo, the demon sword, the title collector, the perfect blade, the greatest swordsman in South Korea, a legendary player with countless titles. Only 2 years after the player era began, he had already surpassed level 500, long before Sang-yoon's regression. Sang-yoon had always looked up to him, a warrior he deeply respected. But now, maybe I won't fall behind this time. If I start pushing myself now, maybe, just maybe, I'll have a chance. As his determination blazed within him, Sang-hyun's nostrils flared slightly, releasing a faint puff of white steam. The sudden sight startled the porters behind him. Even Yoon Dae-king couldn't help but raise an eyebrow and ask, "What are you doing?" Snapping out of it, Sang-hyun coughed awkwardly. "Ah, nothing, just stretching." Dae-king didn't press further. Instead, he reached into his inventory and pulled out a small ring, tossing it to Sang-hyun. "Here, you did great. Take it." Catching the rein, Sang-hyun was genuinely surprised. "Whoa, did someone possess you?" Yoon Dae-kyun gave a sheepish smile. "Hey, give me some credit. You really carried the team this time. Still, isn't this a bit much?" Dae-kyun shrugged nonchalantly. "It's just a bronze tier item. I can afford to be generous." Sang-hyun smirked. "You're a little too honest for your own good." You know, Dae-king waved him off with a laugh. "Hey, if it were expensive, I wouldn't have given it to you." But even as he spoke, a silent thought lingered in his mind. "I gave this to you because from now on, we'll probably never cross paths again. Like it or not, even I have to admit it. You live in a completely different world from the rest of us now." As Sang-hyun and Yoon Dae-king continued to laugh and chat, neither of them noticed the blonde-haired man standing behind them, biting his lip in silent fury. His eyes burned with resentment as he glared at them. He cares more about that bastard just because he showed off his skills a few times. I've served him for so long, and yet this is how he repays me. This is unfair. Completely unfair. A cold, murderous thought crept into his mind. Screw this. They should both just die. Without hesitation, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Time quickly passed. The scene transitioned to Sang-yoon's apartment in Jamsil-dong, Songpa district. Sitting in front of his desk, Sang-yoon grinned from ear to ear as he checked his bank account. "This is insane. Now this is why I became a player." A notification flashed on the screen. "Transaction complete. 200 coins received. The main exchange gate alone gives me 200 coins per day." Sang-yoon chuckled, rubbing his chin. "Looks like he gave me twice the amount compared to the others, plus an extra bonus. Damn, I hit the jackpot." He put his phone down and turned his gaze toward the ring resting on the table. Frenzied ring rank bronze type accessory special effect, lightweight attributes, strength plus 10 description. A ring that can only be obtained from the frenzied orc. It causes the wearer to enter a state of rage. Special effect, lightweight. Consumes 1 mana per second to reduce the perceived weight of all equipped artifacts to 1 gram. Reading through its stats and effects, Sang-yoon couldn't help but admire its potential. Even though it's just a bronze tier item, I can't believe I got a free artifact with lightweight. His eyes glinted with understanding. Now I see why it's normally classified as silver. Most players exhausted their mana after just a few swings of their sword, but using 1 mana per second just to lighten their equipment? That's ridiculous. Who the hell would waste their mana on something like that? The thought made him chuckle to himself, but then his expression shifted, his grin turning sharper. "Then again, none of that matters to me." Sang-yoon leaned back in his chair. "Deep in thought, in my past life, I only discovered my ability when I was already over 50 years old. But that's exactly why I trained so damn hard to master it." He recalled a crucial memory, a time when he consumed an artifact that required mana to function. And the result? The penalty effect disappeared. Artifacts that drained mana always had a drawback, a side effect that made them difficult to use. But for Sang-hyun, when I absorbed them, the penalties vanished completely. Who cares about the drawbacks? The more abilities I collect, the better. With that thought in mind, he reached forward and placed his hand on the rein. A faint blue light began to swirl around his fingertips. Then, without hesitation, he started the absorption process. At the H-Seoul nightclub in Gangnam, the atmosphere was thick with smoke, alcohol, and the heavy beat of music. Amidst the neon glow, The blonde-haired man from Yoon Dae-kyung's party was lounging in a private booth, his arm draped around a beautiful woman, but he wasn't enjoying the moment. He was ranting, "I'm telling you, it's true. That bastard has a stun skill that lasts for 4 whole seconds." His voice was loud, too loud. Across from him, a thuggish-looking man narrowed his eyes in irritation. "Oi, who the hell do you think you're raising your voice at?" The blonde man immediately shrank back, bowing his head. "And no, I'm sorry." The thug scoffed, his expression full of disdain. Then he leaned forward, eyes glinting dangerously. "So, what, you want me to take revenge for you?" The blonde man shook his head violently. "No, but I swear he's cheating." He even used multiple stun items. Before he could continue, the thug suddenly slammed the table. "Then what the hell do you want from me, you idiot?" His voice boomed through the room, making the surrounding clubgoers flinch. "I'm in the middle of business here, and you're wasting my time with your whining." The blonde man gulped, but then he added, voice trembling, "But Yoon Dae-kyung seems to like him a lot." That got the thug's attention. His lips curled into a smirk. "Oh, so you do want revenge, after all?" Meanwhile, not far from the booth, a blonde-haired woman leaned in close to a man with an eye patch, whispering seductively into his ear. "You're not close to that guy, are you? He looks like a total loser." "Ha ha ha, Tilda." The one-eyed man chuckled, then straightened up. He wanted to impress the woman, so without hesitation he called out, "Hey!" The blonde man turned toward him, but before he could even react, schlick, a cold flash of steel. Then, pain. His left ear hit the table with a wet thud. Ah, arg! Blood spurted from the side of his head as he screamed and clutched his wound, his entire body convulsing in agony. But the one-eyed man simply smiled. "Who do you think we are?" "Ha!" He leaned down, lightly slapping the blonde man's tear-streaked face. Then, in a voice as cold as ice, "You thought we were your personal errand boys?" The blonde man trembled, his eyes wide with fear. The one-eyed man sneered, "Then you better pay the price." He grabbed a glass of alcohol from the table and poured it over the fresh, bleeding wound. Blonde man howled in pure agony, writhing as the liquor burned through his exposed flesh. But the one-eyed man just laughed, thoroughly enjoying the sight. Then, with a casual tilt of his head, he asked, "Now tell me, where the hell is this bastard you're talking about?" Time passed quickly. Back to Sang-yeon's current situation. He was still completely unaware that the blonde-haired guy and a group of thugs had set their sights on him. So, for now he remained relaxed, strolling leisurely without a care in the world. Taking a seat near the staircase, Sang-hyun let out a weary sigh. Just remembering the taste of the food he had eaten earlier was enough to make his stomach churn. The mere thought of it made him feel nauseous, like he was about to throw up any second. Who the hell would have guessed that cold cucumber soup could come out of the Ring of Frenzy? Cold Eastern cucumber soup, the ultimate killer of anyone who dares to eat it. My stomach is turning inside out right now. But as they say, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. At that thought, he casually twirled the massive greatsword in his hand, effortlessly spinning it like a windmill, despite its insane weight. All of this was thanks to the lightweight effect he had obtained from the Ring of Frenzy. Lightweight, a special passive effect with no cooldown. And due to his Artifact Devourer skill, the original mana consumption penalty of the ability had been completely removed. As a side effect, however, the lightweight effect had been nerfed. Now, instead of completely negating weight, it simply set the weight of all artifacts to a fixed 100 grams. Well, I guess I'll be using this greatsword for now, but what if I accidentally drop it? That would be a disaster. Alright. Next up, as he spoke, Sang-hyun quickly pulled up his status window. Current player information, name Shin Sang-hyun, level 7, titles Overwhelming Strength, plus 2 others Constellation None, exclusive skill Artifact Devourer, Artifacts Devoured 3, HP 324, Energy 32, Experience 307, Strength 13, Stamina 12, Agility 12, Magic Power 10, Luck 16, Evasion 15, Defense 10, Unallocated Stat Points 0. Gazing at his current stats, Sang-yeon reminded himself of his next step. I need to start drawing the attention of the constellations. A player could only have one constellation, so he had to choose carefully. If possible, I want a constellation that matches my strongest stat. That means luck. But then he let out a small sigh. Well, at the moment, I don't have any outstanding stats that would attract them. I guess all I can do for now is train. With that thought, Sang-hyun slowly stood up, his eyes locking onto the countless training dummies lined up ahead. Time to get to work. 3 days later, at this moment, Sang-hyun had just arrived at an unfamiliar location, having driven there himself. The moment he stepped out of the car, his face was completely pale, as if he was about to drop dead at any second. I seriously thought I was gonna die back there. I guess 3 days of non-stop training plus a long road trip was way too much. Well, at least I got a new skill out of it, so I guess it was worth it. As he spoke, Sang-yeon twisted his torso left and right, stretching his body a little to shake off the fatigue. The new skill he had acquired was ambidextrous sword mastery, a basic passive ability for swordsmen. Description: increases adaptability with all types of swords, excluding short swords and one-handed long swords. Now, as for the place Sang-yoon had come to, this was none other than dungeon number 101, a solo player exclusive dungeon. Looking at the glowing blue portal before him, a faint smile appeared on his lips. Today, I get to go all out by myself. No more worrying about people staring at me like I'm some kind of freak. Not only that, but getting access to a solo dungeon like this usually meant waiting in line for months. I should be glad I managed to slip in through the cracks. Just as he was about to step forward, he suddenly paused. His gaze shifted toward the distance behind him, and his expression darkened. A black car sat idly in the distance, parked in complete silence. It had been following him for quite some time now, and at this point, Sang-hyun was sure of it. I can't believe they actually followed me all the way into the damn forest. I don't know what they want, but whatever it is, I'll settle it inside the dungeon. His voice turned cold, and his eyes gleamed with a dangerous edge. Inside the dungeon entrance, the entrance to dungeon number 101 resembled a massive cave, its dark, ominous passage stretching deep inside. Emerging from the blue portal, a group of thugs stepped forward calmly, their expressions unreadable. It seemed that the blonde-haired traitor had somehow convinced them to take the job. But before they could take another step, Sang-yoon's voice rang out, cutting through the air. "This is a solo player dungeon, isn't it? You guys couldn't have gotten lost. That means you're trespassing in my place." Hearing that voice, the leader of the rat gang raised an eyebrow in slight surprise. His eyes swept over Sang-hyun. Taking in his posture, the guy looked like he had been waiting for them this whole time. But that moment of curiosity quickly turned into mocking laughter. "Are you stupid or something?" Turning back to Sang-hyun, the whole gang erupted into laughter, their expressions full of amusement at his supposed foolishness. Sang-hyun, however, remained calm. The moment he got a good look at them, he immediately realized something was off. These guys weren't a normal dungeon raid team. Thinking it over, he decided to give them one last chance to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. "I won't report this, so get lost." His eyes narrowed slightly as he spoke. At the same time, he silently analyzed the entire group, scanning them carefully before coming to a quick conclusion. No healers, no mages. They gave up stability, the one thing every dungeon party needs, to form an all-swordsman and archer team. These guys aren't dungeon hunters, they're awakened hunters. A pack of hyenas. Just as he suspected, this was a group that specialized in hunting other awakened players, and judging by their attitudes, they weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Ha ha ha. This dumbass actually thinks he's something special. The huge thug let out a loud laugh. Meanwhile, the small blonde-haired guy next to him sneered, "That's your fate, dumbass. If you die here, not even your corpse will be found." For some reason, Sang-hyun felt a strange sense of familiarity with this group. Digging through his memories, he remembered something from the past. This exact group had been completely wiped out by the Player Association's strict surveillance. It's been a while, huh? Against groups like this, the archers are always the biggest problem. "Yeah, I already figured that out." Sang-hyun responded lightly, his gaze locking onto the archer, a cold, emotionless man who showed no reaction whatsoever to the idea of killing someone. Not wanting to waste any more time, the archer casually drew his bow, speaking in a bored tone. All right, let's wrap this up and move on." But just as he finished, Sang-hyun spoke up again, and his words left the entire gang stunned. "That's exactly why I was waiting for you. If I had to get rid of 4 corpses, what better place to do it than here?" A sharp, mocking smile tugged at his lips. The massive thug's face twisted in rage. "You little shit." With a furious roar, he lunged forward, ready to attack. However, before he could charge, the one-eyed man swiftly blocked him with his sword. "Let's do this the easy way." His voice was cold and composed. The huge thug's eyes widened in frustration. "This is the easy way? I'm gonna rip his throat out." Ahead of them, Sang-hyun smirked, his words dripping with provocation. "Good boy, listen to your master. Haha, stop wasting time and just come at me all at once." A thug like the big guy, who was used to throwing his weight around, had no tolerance for this kind of mockery. "You better shut your damn mouth." With a furious roar, he planted his foot down, exploded forward like a raging bull, and swung his massive great sword straight for Sang-hyun's torso without hesitation. Survival of the fittest? Is there a better phrase to describe a dungeon? Inside a dungeon, monsters always aim for your life. And in those same dungeons, the artifacts you and everyone else seek exist on the razor's edge of life and death. If you're weak, you die. There are no rules inside the dungeon. So if you want to live, you have to kill. That was the karma from my past life, and it still applies even now. In the end, everything that happens here is just self-defense. The entire gang of thugs stood frozen in shock. Their eyes, filled with disbelief, were locked onto the scene before them. Just seconds ago, the big guy had charged forward, radiating overwhelming aggression. But now, he had been sliced clean in half. Not a single scream escaped him. One sword strike. That was all it took. Sang-hyun coldly swept his gaze over the remaining three. What are you standing around for? Come on, all of you. No hesitation. The remaining three immediately backed away, instinctively increasing their distance. After seeing that level of strength, they all understood one thing. If Sang-hyun got close, they were dead. Relying on their experience hunting other awakened players, they quickly adjusted their strategy. While running, the blue-haired guy barked out orders. "Cover us while we reposition." "Got it," the archer responded. But internally, his mind was spiraling in confusion. He killed San-ho. Even if the guy was an idiot, San-ho was still level 100, and that kid had only awakened recently. What the hell is going on? The archer couldn't make sense of it. Meanwhile, on Sang-hyun's side, he had started spinning his great sword, its heavy blade whirling through the air like the blades of a helicopter. The sharp winds it generated howled ominously, sending shivers down the spines of those who heard it. "Hey now, where are you running off to?" Sang-hyun teased, his smirk widening. "What kind of monster is this?" The archer cursed. Even as he spoke, his hands moved instinctively, drawing his bow and letting loose 2 arrows at blinding speed. But to Sang-hyun, it was child's play. With one effortless swing, he sliced both arrows in half before they could even get close. And then, before the archer could react, Sang-hyun spun around and hurled his great sword straight at him. Thud! The sword struck its target. The archer barely had time to scream before collapsing, lifeless. The dying scream made the 2 remaining thugs freeze in place. They turned their heads in shock, their faces going pale. "Who the hell is this guy?" the small orange-haired thug shouted in disbelief. Unlike him, however, the blue-haired one had a completely different thought process. His sharp gaze locked onto Sang-hyun and more specifically, the fact that he was now unarmed. He threw away his great sword. That means he's got no weapon right now. This is the perfect chance to strike attack at his command. Both of them charge. At the same time, Sang-hyun also dashed forward, heading straight for his greatsword, which was still lodged in the archer's corpse. The race was on, but just as his fingers brushed the hilt of his weapon, the 2 thugs' blades came slashing toward him. Slash! The sound of steel-cutting flesh echoed through the air. A spray of fresh blood splattered onto the ground. But it didn't come from Sang-hyun, it came from the archer's corpse. Because in the final moment, just before the blades reached him, Sang-hyun had used his sword as a pivot point, launching himself into the air with an acrobatic flip. "You're insane!" The orange-haired thug gritted his teeth, stunned that Sang-hyun managed to dodge even in that tight window of time. But Sang-hyun wasn't interested in conversation. Still mid-air, he reached down and ripped his greatsword out. At that moment, the blue-haired thug, Juntae, suddenly reached out, grabbing the orange-haired one's head from behind. The smaller thug flinched in confusion. "Juntae, what the hell are you doing?" Before he could react, Juntae shoved him forward, like a human meat shield. Slash! The orange-haired thug barely had time to scream before Sang-hyun's greatsword cut through him like paper. Just like that, he was gone. Damn, that's some real brotherly love right there. Selling out your own teammate the second things go south, Sang-hyun said, mocking. After that, he paused his assault for a moment and casually added, "You guys were selling organs, right?" Juntae's eyes narrowed. Sang-hyun smirked. "Yeah? No way in hell people like you would trust each other just out of goodwill. So let me guess. Your real goal was awakening mana stones through organ transplants, right?" For a brief second, Juntae's expression shifted. Sang-hyun immediately caught it. Bullseye. Still, Juntae let out a cold chuckle. "So, what if you figured it out?" "Huh, you little shit," as soon as the words left his mouth. Juntae lunged, his sword aimed straight at Sang-hyun's chest, and on his lips, a victorious grin. But just when the blade was barely 5 centimeters away from Sang-hyun's face, it stopped, frozen in place, unable to move forward even a single inch. Because Crushing Kneel has been activated, a debilitating shock surged through Juntae's body. For the next 4.4 seconds, he was completely paralyzed, like a statue. Sang-hyun took a step forward, looked him in the eye and spoke. "Let me ask you something." A cold chill crawled up Juntae's spine. He tried to move. Nothing. Tried to speak. Nothing. All he could do was stand there, feeling sweat dripped down his face. "What the hell? I'm paralyzed? But how? Those wounds from earlier. No way. No fucking way. Just from those tiny cuts? There's no skill that broken. And? What is he talking about? I'm the one who kills. That's how it's always been. I take lives, not the other way around." Yet now, for the first time in his life, he saw the end, and as death loomed closer, his mind flashed back to the past. Back to when he tricked a fresh new awakened rookie. Give it your all this time, okay? He had smiled, placing an arm over the young freckled boy's shoulder. With you here, we can do anything. I trust you. Bro, the rookie grinned back, completely unaware. Scene transition, a different memory. A young rookie, his face covered in blood, trembled in fear, tears mixed with red streaks as he stared at Juntae. Why are you doing this? His voice cracked. Please, don't. I'll do anything you say. Back to the present. Juntae's entire body shook uncontrollably. Sang-yoon watched him, then smirked. What's wrong? Didn't you already go through this yourself? Oh, or are you scared now? Because it's finally your turn? Time passed. Now Sang-yoon sat beside a small stream, carefully wiping his sword clean. Juntae was gone, sent to reunite with his comrades. And even though this wasn't the first time, even though he had witnessed this kind of thing countless times before, a part of him still felt off. I shouldn't get used to this. I haven't even been regressed for that long. At this rate, there's no way I'll ever form a contract with a constellation. Sang-yoon exhaled. His gaze drifted towards the pile of discarded weapons nearby. Dang, you have obtained 8 artifacts from this dungeon. Sang-yoon raised a brow, then grinned. Well, if it's self-defense, then I guess all of this belongs to me now. Time passed quickly. At this moment, Sang-hyun was putting his jacket back on. During the fight earlier, he had taken it off to avoid getting blood on it. At the same time, he checked his current status. Right now, he had reached level 10 and his consumed artifacts had totaled up to 11. His life points were at 400, energy at 50, and experience at 12. Looking at his status window, Sang-yoon's expression grew a bit complicated. I wish I could have avoided that situation, but considering the results, it was worth it. At least I'm glad I didn't get fat from consuming artifacts. But still, just looking at my stats alone, doesn't this mean I'm already as strong as level 50 players? How long has it even been since I came back? My growth rate is actually insane. And on top of that, as he muttered to himself, Sang-yoon reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a ring. It was the Recovery Ring, a silver-tier artifact classified as support equipment. Rain's special effect recovery usage effect consumes 10 mana to instantly remove any abnormal status. If used again within the next minute, the mana consumption doubles. Seeing this item, Sang-yoon couldn't help but be a little surprised. That guy who charged at me right from the start. Who would have thought he actually had an artifact that nullifies debuffs? Wait, so if I had blindly relied on my stun skill, I would have been screwed. Looks like I need to be more careful next time. With that thought, he began synchronizing his mana with the Recovery Ring. Scene transition deep inside dungeon number 101, Internal Access Path. Deeper inside the dungeon, there appeared to be a mining site where a group of goblins was working. Some of them carried small sacks on their backs, seemingly used for collecting minerals. However, after just a few steps, one of the creatures suddenly stopped in its tracks and turned around, sensing something. Following its gaze, the goblin spotted Sang-yoon asking for breath. He gripped his sword tightly in one hand, but the strangest part, Washi's eyes were covered with a black cloth. Even Sang-yoon himself felt that what he was doing was absolutely insane, but he had no choice. The requirement to obtain the Lucky Day title is as follows. This is crazy. It wants the player to kill 500 monsters while keeping their eyes closed. On the other side, the goblins hesitated for a brief moment upon witnessing Sang-hyun's strange behavior. They didn't immediately charge into attack. Come on, when are these monsters going to make a move? The protagonist muttered in frustration. Once they confirmed that Sang-hyun was truly unable to see, the goblins let out amused chuckles. Drool dripped from their mouths as their excitement grew. Back to Sang-hyun's perspective, he suddenly lifted his head slightly, sensing something in the air. I can feel them. I have to sense the airflow and listen carefully to everything around me. Focus. I need to maintain this heightened state of awareness. Inside his mental world, it was as if he were standing on the surface of a still body of water. Then, from behind him, countless sounds and ripples began spreading rapidly toward him. The sounds and ripples became increasingly clear and intense, surrounding Sang-yoon from all directions, appearing and disappearing unpredictably instead of following a linear path. I can do this, he reminded himself. At that very moment, one of the goblins let out a roar, gripping its axe tightly. It swung it straight at Sang-yoon. However, what it didn't know was that Sang-yoon's heightened perception had already detected its movement well in advance. Without a moment of hesitation, he swung his sword in a sweeping arc, slicing through the air with breakneck speed, and in an instant, 4 goblins were cleaved in half simultaneously. A rain of blood erupted. The area was instantly suffused with the thick stench of fresh blood. And yet, rather than feeling repulsed, Sang-yoon seemed almost exhilarated. This feels damn good. He let out a low chuckle. Just then, a blinding streak of light shot toward him at breakneck speed, aiming straight for his head. For an ordinary person, there would be no time to react. But our protagonist? Not a chance. The moment it entered his range of perception, Sang-hyun's hand snapped up effortlessly. catching the arrow mid-flight before crushing it into pieces in a single motion. The goblin archer in the distance broke into a cold sweat, letting out an unintelligible noise. Back to Sang-hyun's perspective, his perception was expanding in all directions, allowing him to sense countless pairs of eyes watching him from within the darkness. And yet, he felt no fear whatsoever. Just moments ago, I was in a terrible situation. But because of it, I got to relive my past. Maybe that's why my senses have been sharpened. Huh. Well, either way, come at me, you bastards, he taunted them outright. And how could these green-skinned creatures possibly hold back after hearing that? With their overwhelming numbers, the goblins charged forward like moths to a flame. But the only thing awaiting them was death. Sang-hyun's sword whipped through the air at lightning speed, slashing and cutting down the goblins before they could even get close. His attacks were so relentless and precise that the goblins collapsed into pieces mid-charge, never even realizing how they had died. Rather than slowing down, Sang-hyun grinned in exhilaration. He lunged forward aggressively, cutting down everything in his path without the slightest hesitation. Only one goblin, lagging behind, had the misfortune of witnessing everything. It stood frozen, watching its comrades get obliterated in an instant. Terror was etched all over its face, but before it could even think about running, it soon joined its fallen brethren in the afterlife. Having temporarily wiped out the group of monsters ahead, Sang-hyun finally stopped for a moment. The tip of his sword still smoldered with heat. Drenched in the blood of the fallen goblins, the scene around him was even more gruesome than a slaughterhouse. Every single monster's sacrifice had become fuel for Sang-hyun's growth. Suddenly, a notification popped up before his eyes. Congratulations, you have leveled up. You have obtained the title, Lucky Day Rank D. Hearing the announcement, Sang-hyun ripped off his blindfold in one swift motion. There was no need for it anymore. Doesn't even feel like I did much. He shrugged, taking a moment to check out his newly acquired title. Lucky Day Rank D. Primary effect luck plus 20. Secondary effect each time you defeat a monster of the same type, your luck stat increases by 0.1, maximum increase plus 10. Reading the description of his new title, our protagonist couldn't hold back a chuckle. Haha, I'm finally gathering all the titles I need. Meanwhile, a new group of goblins had been drawn to the area by all the commotion. But the moment they arrived, their eyes landed on the horrifying sight before them. Limbs and body parts of their fallen kin scattered all over the place. Every hair on their bodies stood on end. But before they could even think about retreating, Sang-hyun was already standing right in front of them, flashing a deranged smile. Haha, can't let this opportunity go to waste. More stats for me. And they even walked right into my lap, drenched in blood, his face twisted into that of a bloodthirsty executioner. Even goblins, who lived for slaughter, couldn't suppress their terror. They screamed at the top of their lungs as if their village had just caught fire. Time passed quickly. The unfortunate goblins that had arrived late had now joined their fallen comrades in the afterlife. And as for Sang-hyun, was so thrilled that his whole body was trembling, as if he were having a seizure. My luck stat went up by 30. Just from this one title. This is even better than most platinum-ranked titles. This has to be worth 500 million. No, maybe even $1 billion. In this lifetime, I can finally afford a house. He shouted in pure exhilaration. But then, at that exact moment, a crimson spatial crack suddenly appeared behind him, crackling with violent lightning. At the same time, a notification popped up before his eyes. The space around you begins to fade. Sang-hyun didn't even need the warning. He could already feel the disturbance in the space behind him. His expression instantly stiffened as he whipped around to see what was happening. Cold sweat dripped down his face. And that grin he had just moments ago, it vanished completely. A series of notifications began to appear in front of Sang-hyun. 3 constellations have taken an interest in you. The constellation Dimensional Ruin Cleaner asks, are you interested in bringing misfortune to others? The constellation Grand Voyager of the Void is intrigued by your mysterious nature and wishes to converse. The constellation Goddess of Luck smiles at you while extending her hand. At this moment, the physical manifestations of the 3 constellations stood before Sang-hyun. First was the Dimensional Ruin Cleaner, a grotesque entity resembling a giant insect, yet it had a pair of wings and an unnervingly long tail. Next was the Grand Voyager of the Void, shrouded in mystery, draped in a flowing white robe. An enigmatic and unfathomable aura emanated from his presence. Lastly, there was the Goddess of Luck, an overwhelmingly beautiful figure capable of captivating one's very soul. Switching to Sang-hyun's perspective, he couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness upon witnessing all 3 of his close friends being noticed by the 3 Grand Elders at the same time. That was fast, and all 3 of them too, he thought to himself, a bit overwhelmed. Then, in an attempt to draw some attention to himself, he spoke up half-jokingly. Haha, did you guys see my performance? To his surprise, the Goddess of Luck suddenly floated right in front of him. Rather than being mesmerized by her beauty, Sanghyun felt a creeping sense of unease. Had he done something to offend them? Wait, was my tone too arrogant? I've never been in this kind of situation before, not even in my past life. No. The more pressure I feel, the more confident I need to act, he reminded himself. Fortunately for him, the goddess of luck showed no signs of displeasure. Instead, she flashed a radiant smile and seemed to regard him with favor. She then spoke in a voice filled with curiosity. This is the first time I've ever seen such a lucky swordsman. How unusual. Hearing that, Sang-hun scratched the back of his head awkwardly and chuckled. Oh, luck? Yeah, I guess I really am insanely lucky. Even he was a little taken aback by just how ridiculously fortunate he had been. Phew. Just as I expected. This constellation seems interested in forming a contract. That means I can take my time and examine things properly now, he thought to himself. Meanwhile, the star of the collapsing void cleaner openly praised Sang-yoon's potential for cruelty. This particular constellation had the personality of a classic bloodthirsty executioner, and Sang-yoon couldn't help but wonder, did I catch his attention just because I massacred a bunch of goblins in such a short time? On the other hand, the Grand Wanderer of Space seemed more intrigued by the hidden depths of Sang-yoon's psyche. This left him puzzled. Why was this constellation here? I've heard that the Grand Wanderer of Space only appears before players who possess the aura of a saint. So, does that mean they're actually here because of her? He murmured, his gaze shifting forward with a hint of doubt. At that moment, the goddess of luck was happily chatting with the other two constellations. She even reached out and ruffled the Grand Wanderer's hair, causing his face to flush a deep red. Seeing this, a rumor from Sang-yoon's past life suddenly resurfaced in his mind. The goddess of luck, even in the world of constellations, there were rumors that she had incredibly vast connections. Across from him, the beautiful goddess caught his skeptical gaze, noticing how he was staring at her intently. In response, she turned to face him and casually reassured him. I'm not possessive. Even if you choose me, you're still free to form contracts with other constellations, she said. Reading this system message, Sang-yoon was momentarily stunned. This offer was almost too good to be true. Wait, seriously? He blurted out before thinking to himself. This is a massive advantage. A sharpshooter can hit their mark even when firing into the air. Under the blessings of the world, they never run out of arrows. The miracle archer. Among all archers, Hashimoto Yuki was the one who had defeated countless top swordsmen. Not only did he have an absurdly high luck stat, but his destructive power was overwhelming. People suspected he was cheating or exploiting a loophole, but in reality, it was simply because he had contracts with two constellations, and it was the goddess of luck who made that impossible feat a reality. With that thought in mind, Sang-hyu knew better than to offend these three constellations, so he could only force a smile and chuckle awkwardly. Having three constellations appear at once sure makes it hard to choose. Across from him, the emotional state of the three constellations shifted instantly. They urged him to cast aside the petty concerns of a mere mortal and make a decision of fate. One of them even began to question whether they had chosen the wrong person. From Sang-hyun's perspective, however, it wasn't that he was playing mind games to raise the value of his contract. He was genuinely struggling to make the right choice. The goddess of luck is definitely a good constellation, but if choosing her means no other constellations will appear in the future, then this decision is practically locking in my entire fate as a player. Over the 10 years I spent as a player, only one constellation ever approached me: the model student who succeeded late in life. When he appeared, it was like a beacon of salvation. I was overwhelmed with joy. No matter how much I struggled, I believed that the future would be bright. But nothing ever changed. Not until I turned 55. That's right, I never got any real benefit from my constellation. The activation condition was absurd. The ability required me to reach level 850 before it would double all stat effects from artifacts and titles. For my entire life, I couldn't use the constellation's most important power. No, more than that, I didn't even dare to dream of using it. But in the end, maybe that constellation was the reason I got to turn back time. So for that, I'm grateful. Which is why, this time, I had to be more careful than ever. From now on, I had to accept that there won't be another chance to rewind time. As he thought, he carefully studied the three constellations before him. Should I choose divine power, destructive power, or luck? And just like that, after a brief moment of contemplation, our protagonist made his decision. Without hesitation, he pressed the confirmation button on the system screen. Immediately, a notification popped up. You have signed a contract with the constellation Goddess of Luck. Once the contract is established, even if the player dies, it will remain in effect for 30 years without disappearing. In another realm, an entity was closely monitoring the contract between the reincarnated player and the Goddess of Luck. 15 friendly constellations sincerely congratulate your contract and wish for your victory. 3 hostile constellations have decided to use their players to hinder your growth. A series of notifications flooded the screen, causing Sang-yoon to glance nervously at the bright red warning messages before him. What the hell is this? Why am I suddenly attracting so much attention? Well, whatever happens, I'll be counting on you from now on, Goddess of Luck. As he spoke, he reached out his hand. Seeing this, the Goddess of Luck gently extended her hand, placing it against his. The Goddess of Luck blesses your wise choice. Just as Sang-young was about to say something, the system suddenly issued another set of notifications. Goddess of Luck, contract effects and blessings. All offensive actions guarantee critical damage against enemies. When obtaining a unique grade artifact or higher, you will automatically unlock and inherit its hidden effect. When defeating a mid-tier boss or a main boss, if the boss's level is higher than yours, you will receive an artifact with a 100% drop rate. At that moment, the Goddess of Luck transformed into a chibi version of herself. She tilted her head back arrogantly, her expression smug and full of pride. Meanwhile, Sang-yoon's reaction was as if he had just heard that the neighbor's kid bought a mansion through a scam. Wow, what the hell is this? Why are these abilities so overpowered? Wait, there's more? His eyes widened as yet another notification appeared. Trait Cat, when investing level up points into luck, each point will double the stat value. This effect is retroactively applied to all previously allocated points. Sang-hyun's jaw dropped, looking at the 4 contract traits granted by the Goddess of Luck. Sang-hyun was so overjoyed that he cried like a baby. Guaranteed critical hits and artifact drops? You've really had it rough. Sang-hyun, as he spoke, he felt like his life was only now truly beginning. Then, out of nowhere, the Goddess of Luck turned to him and asked. The Goddess of Luck inquires, "What will you do about the offers from the other constellations?" To Sang-hyun, after witnessing firsthand what he had gained from the Goddess of Luck, why would he even care about the other 2 constellations? He turned around and dismissively waved his hand. It's fine, you 2 can leave now. I need to focus on the goddess." Hearing this, the other 2 constellations immediately bristled with irritation. The Grand Voyager of Space, take a number. See you next time. The Spatial Collapse Janitor warning. One day, I will take something from you. Be prepared. Meanwhile, the Goddess of Luck clapped her hands in delight, amused by his unwavering determination. With this effect, you don't need to be greedy for now, she thought. Sang-yoon nodded in agreement, reminding himself, no need to rush. Better opportunities will come. Time flew by in an instant and the scene shifted. Now, in the boss room of dungeon number 101, Sang-yoon was locked in combat with the dungeon's final boss, a green-skinned monster. The clash of their weapons rang through the air, each impact creating ear-splitting echoes and unleashing shockwaves across the battlefield. Off to the side, the Goddess of Luck watched, completely dazed. Meanwhile, Sang-hyun only grew more exhilarated the longer he fought. Is this really all the final boss has to offer? Come on, give me more, you weakling. With a mighty swing, he slashed his sword forward, forcing the green-skinned monster to raise its twin battle axes in a desperate attempt to block the attack. This was the final boss of the dungeon, the greedy Goblin Warlord. Next, the Goblin Warlord channeled all its strength into its arms and shoved Sang-yoon backward. Reacting quickly, Sang-yoon drove his sword into the ground, using it to halt his movement before he could be knocked too far back. A deep trench was left in the earth where his blade had dug in. Then, the Goblin Warlord suddenly threw its head back and let out a deafening shriek. Its eyes blazed a furious red as a system notification appeared before Sang-yoon. The Goblin Warlord has inflicted weakness and oppression on you. You have been paralyzed. From Sang-yoon's perspective, however, this was nothing new. Thanks to his experiences from his previous life, he had long anticipated this move. It's trying to break my will to fight. Muttering under his breath, he activated his recovery skill, Recover. At the same time, the Goblin Warlord refused to give him any breathing room. With a ferocious charge, it swung its battle axe downward in a crushing blow. The sheer force of the attack shattered the ground beneath them, sending sharp shards of rock flying in all directions. However, as the Goblin Warlord surveyed the aftermath, a flicker of confusion crossed its face. It hadn't felt the sensation of hitting anything solid. And sure enough, Sang-yoon's voice rang out, completely unfazed. This skill has a clear limit. It can't completely lock down movement. Guess it's only good for dealing with small fry. At that moment, Sang-yoon had already braced his sword against the Goblin Warlord's axe, stopping it from being retracted. The reason he could move despite the paralysis? His recovery ring. This was the same ring he had obtained after dealing with those thugs earlier. Thanks to its anti-CC effect, the moment he was paralyzed, the status ailment was immediately lifted. Alright, let's test my luck, Sang-hyun murmured as he steadied his grip on his sword. Meanwhile, the Goblin Warlord's face drained of all color. Panicking, it attempted to inflict weakness on him again. However, this time, Sang-hyun simply smirked coldly. You think that trick will work twice? With a lightning-fast dash forward, Sang-hyun slashed his blade across its chest, carving a deep wound into its left side. The goblin warlord let out a blood-curdling scream as pain surged through its body. Without wasting a second, Sang-yoon activated his skill, Demon Breaker. The effect was immediate. The goblin warlord was paralyzed for 2 whole seconds. Seeing the opportunity, Sang-yoon lunged forward. His sword became a blur, striking with machine-like precision and speed, as if it were a high-powered milling cutter tearing through steel. Only 2 seconds? Then let's make it 4. With that, he applied a delay effect, extending the paralysis for another 2 seconds. The goblin warlord's face froze in sheer disbelief. It couldn't move a muscle. But that wasn't the end. Sang-yoon immediately picked up speed, darting around the stunned goblin, launching a flurry of attacks from every possible angle. Secondary delay effect activated. 90% chance of prolonging paralysis. Success. Huh. Got it again? Sang-yoon smirked. Time passed swiftly, and in the end, the goblin warlord could no longer withstand Sang-yoon's relentless assault. It fell with a final, pitiful groan, departing for its next reincarnation the moment its body hit the ground. A system notification flashed before Sang-yoon's eyes. Congratulations! You have cleared the Dark Swamp Goblin Dungeon. You have leveled up. You have received the D rank title. Don't mess with me. Luck plus 3-0. Evasion Pu Nominode 0. You may enhance one chosen skill once. The enhancement level is based on the system's designated scaling for players. Sang-yoon collapsed onto the ground, completely exhausted from the constant battles since the start of this dungeon. They say youth should be spent working hard, but at this rate, I'm pushing my body to the limit. He let out a tired groan, complaining to himself. Standing beside him, the lucky goddess clapped her hands and cheerfully encouraged him. The lucky goddess says that as long as you try, fortune will follow. Sang-yoon rolled his eyes. At this point, I should just call this an ability of mine. In response, the lucky goddess puffed up with pride. The lucky goddess says that luck is a skill and she is delighted to see it following you. In fact, she firmly believes it's all thanks to her. Sang-yoon sighed but didn't argue. Instead, he quickly opened his stats window. First things first, let's dump my points into luck. As he allocated the points, his luck stat finally surpassed 100. Once a stat exceeds 100, an adjustment occurs, amplifying its effects by an extra 10%. For most stats like evasion, this meant a higher chance to dodge attacks. But for luck, it directly influenced drop rates. And as if the system wanted to prove his point, a faint blow suddenly radiated from the goblin warlord's massive shield, an item it hadn't even gotten the chance to use during the fight. Sang-yoon glanced at it, and instantly, a window popped up, revealing the item's details. Cudness Shield Silver Artifact Secondary Equipment Type Shield Special Effects Sacrifice Defense. 20 Description: a shield left behind by a goblin warrior named Cudness. It fortifies itself using mana and converts received damage unto healing. However, the entire process consumes an equivalent amount of mana. Sang-yoon whistled in admiration. Now this is one hell of a shield. It seemed like this item was specifically designed for tank-type players. However, Sang-yoon had no complaints about obtaining it. After all, it's a guaranteed drop thanks to the goddess. So that means luck affects the drop rate of artifacts, right? One thing's for sure, this is even more troublesome than when I was contracted with the constellation of the late-blooming model student. With that thought in mind, he activated his skill, Devour, to absorb the shield's attributes. Meanwhile, the goddess of luck suddenly lunged forward, hugging him tightly and rubbing her cheek against his. Time quickly passed, and the scene transitioned to the interior of the Q area building. At this moment, our protagonist was there, trying to explain something. However, he was immediately rejected by a female employee, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "No way," she said, shaking her head. Standing across from her, Sang-hyun persisted. "I understand what you're trying to say, but look, I have my reasons." Before he could finish, the woman cut him off. "I'm sorry, but can you reconsider? I'm about to lose my mind. I don't even know how many corpses I've seen this week." Hearing that, cold sweat dripped down Sang-hyun's face. He muttered to himself, "I can't let things go off track from here." To understand how things got to this point, we need to rewind to 2 hours earlier on the Honam Expressway. Seated inside a car, Sang-hyun was reminiscing about the ordinary moment when he devoured the shield. "I was worried since it was a goblin shield, but a simple meal of kimchi and white rice. A classic peninsula-style dish. At least there was kimchi with the rice." Thinking about this, Sang-hyun's car suddenly came to a halt, shaking violently. A moment later, the control panel lit up with a flood of crimson warning icons, startling him into shouting, "What the hell? Why are all these warning lights on? Is it finally time to get a new car?" He muttered to himself but quickly shook his head. No. Moving to a new area is more important than getting a replacement. The lower a player's level, the more criminals will have their eyes on them. I can't live in a constant state of paranoia. Moving to well-guarded places like Player Street will be more convenient. And if I factor in artifacts, I should buy used ones so they're easier to consume and absorb. Money, I need a ton of money, and I need it fast. There's only one place I can get that kind of cash. The system appeared when the player era began, bringing with it a slew of quests. The organization overseeing all of these missions was none other than the Player Association. If it's a system managed by the association, I can make it work. Here I come, Quest Zone. With that thought, Sang-yoon floored the gas pedal, racing toward the Player Association. Back in the present, being rejected right at the entrance crushed his dreams of quick riches. Across from him, the dark-eyed employee desperately tried to knock some sense into him. So please, enter a dungeon appropriate for your level. Why on earth would you go into a level 100 zone? Besides, you're not even ranked yet. In response, Sang-hyun pulled out his best pleading face. I won't cause any trouble. I swear, please trust me. Maybe I'm only level 17, but with my current skills, going into a low-level area would be a complete waste of time. From the employee's perspective, she was practically on the verge of tears. Her entire body trembled as she weakly pointed to the side, her voice quivering. Yesterday, someone said the exact same thing. Guess what happened to them? So please, just go somewhere appropriate for your level. Seeing her like this, Sang-yoon could somewhat understand her reasoning. I get why she's acting this way. Too many players overestimate themselves and end up dying like idiots. But in moments like these, you just have to grow a thick skin. With that in mind, he put on a face so convincingly trustworthy, it could rival a shady multi-level marketer's. Then, with absolute certainty, he declared, "No, absolutely not." At that moment, a purple-haired girl overheard the commotion and approached. "What's going on here?" she asked. Hearing this, the black-haired employee quickly turned to her, shaking her head. "Hello, it's nothing." Really, this purple-haired girl was Miso, a member of the Eden Guild, a level 100 player and an A+ ranker. When Sang-yoon recognized her face, his eyes flickered with shock for a brief moment as he realized who she was. She's called the Slaughter God Archer, Kim Miso, the first level 100 player to reach A+ rank and earn the title, Divine Archer, a rising star. But more than her skill, what truly makes her stand out is the fact that she's the daughter of Kim Yoon-chul, the chairman of Holy Biotech. That means she's also known by another alias, Shadow Reaper, alongside Shin Tae-rae, the country's top assassin player, and Do Jinyo, one of South Korea's best swordsmen. Her family holds the most shares in the Eden Guild. You could say she's the most privileged player in history. Miso, noticing Sang-hyun staring at her, turned to him and asked, "This is our first time meeting, isn't it? I've been watching for a while. Why are you insisting on taking a level 100 quest?" Without hesitation, Sang-hyun replied, "Because it pays well." At that moment, he caught the murmurs of nearby players. Whoa, Kim Miso is the one who started the conversation. But what's with that guy's attitude? Is he insane? Hey, just drop it. She's about to say something to that level 17 trash, a guy in a cap muttered, holding his friends back. Hearing their words, Sang-yoon simply closed his eyes in silence, though in his mind he was cursing them all. "I can hear you, you bastards." Unaware of his inner thoughts, Miso warned him, "That zone is going to be difficult for you." Sang-hyun sighed and shrugged. "Of course I know that. But the greater the risk, the greater the reward." He paused for a moment, thinking to himself, "I'm definitely not doing this out of personal feelings. Even though in my past life I applied to join Kim Miso's party and got rejected, I'm absolutely not doing this out of spite." Unaware of Sang-hyun's petty inner thoughts, Miso remained enthusiastic as she continued speaking. "But you do know that completing a mission alone is against the association's regulations, right?" Her words immediately snapped Sang-hyun back to reality. He quickly realized the problem. "Now that I think about it, solo missions won't have their restrictions lifted for another 4 years." Knowing that he wouldn't be able to go at it alone here, he scratched his head awkwardly and said, "I guess I didn't read the details carefully. Well then, I'll be on my way." With that, he quickened his pace. However, he failed to notice that his odd behavior had caught Misa's attention. Out of nowhere, she suddenly made an unexpected offer. "Then, do you want to form a party with me?" Around them, the nearby players who overheard her words widened their eyes in disbelief, as if they couldn't trust what they had just heard. Whoa! Is she crazy? Why the hell would she pick that bastard? I could go too. Damn it, this is so unfair, I'm so jealous. From Sang-hyun's perspective, he wasn't naive enough to believe that a golden opportunity had simply fallen into his lap without reason. Suspicious of Miso's true intentions, he immediately asked, "What's the catch?" Hearing that, Miso gave him a look of approval and smirked. "Oh, so you don't believe this is just a simple favor? I tend to trust circumstances more than people." Sang-hyun replied with a grin. Meanwhile, Miso revealed her true motive. "Hey, interesting, but there's no catch. If anything, let's call it a promise instead. If your skills don't match your confidence, you'll have to pay the price. Of course, if it turns out the other way around, I'll give you a sincere apology." Her voice was ice cold. Hearing that, Sang-yoon smirked. He had already figured out Misa's angle. So, this is a test. Kim Misa's influence extends far beyond just being a famous player. The brand value of any outfit she wears skyrockets instantly. With just a few words, she can flood the news. The moment she labels someone as an arrogant player, their career is as good as over. This is going to be interesting. With his usual, if I like it, I fight attitude, Sang-hyun accepted without hesitation. Then let's head out right now. From Misa's perspective, just a few minutes earlier, as she stepped out of her car, the driver had reminded her, "I'll be waiting here, miss." In response, Misa waved her hand dismissively. "Do whatever you want. This might take a while." After that, she couldn't help but feel a little frustrated about having to go alone. All the guild members are busy. How annoying. Guess I'll have to find a party member for myself. Just as this thought crossed her mind, she overheard Sang-yoon's conversation with the association staff. Coincidentally, Kim Miso had a reason to team up with Shin Sang-yoon. The minimum party requirement for missions was just as much of a hassle for her as it was for him. Among all these circumstances, she suddenly came across a player exuding confidence, someone whose true abilities were unknown to everyone. That in itself was quite an intriguing situation for her, and so their unexpected partnership was formed. Meanwhile, the staff member caught between the two was sweating profusely. Then, out of curiosity, Miso casually asked, "By the way, what mission was Shin Sang-hyun planning to take?" Hearing a famous player ask about him, the staff member fumbled for a moment before responding. "Ah, yes, please wait a moment." She quickly checked the system screen in front of her, and then tilted it toward Miso for her to see. The mission details read, "Defense mission. Eliminate all monsters approaching the Guardian Tower. If the Guardian Tower's core is destroyed, the mission will fail. Monster type, wolf-type creatures. Number of monsters 300. Recommended level 100. Mission reward 500,001. After reading the mission description and its requirements, Misa's gaze shifted slightly, even for a level 100 player like her. This was not a mission to be taken lightly. What the hell is this? This isn't a simple collection quest or a standard hunting mission. It's a defense mission. That means they have to wipe out every last monster to succeed. One of the most crucial principles of a 4-player team is having at least one ranged damage dealer. And he planned to do this alone? If I weren't here, he'd be dead for sure. The more she thought about it, the more convinced she became that Shin Sang-hyun was out of his mind for even considering this mission solo. Seeing the slight hesitation in Mrs. gaze, Sang-hyun smirked and provocatively asked, "What's wrong? Are you scared?" Miso blinked in disbelief. For a moment, she wasn't sure if she had misheard him. "What, did I hear that right?" Sang-hyun grinned and replied casually, "Oh no, it's just that you suddenly went quiet. So I was wondering if you were having second thoughts. If it's too much, we can always recruit more members before heading in. Maybe a tank, or a high damage range DPS." Or, as Sang-hyun continued listing off suggestions, the staff member beside them broke into a nervous sweat. She noticed that Miso's entire body was trembling, but not from fear. It was pure, unfiltered rage. Feeling her pride taking a serious hit, Miso suddenly grabbed Sang-hyun's wrist and hissed through gritted teeth, "No, Shin Sang-hyun. This mission is perfectly fine." Before he could say another word, she slammed the accept button. The moment she did, a system notification appeared before them. "Mission accepted. You will now be transported to the designated mission area." As the message flashed on their screens, a dazzling light engulfed both of them. Bolts of energy crackled wildly in all directions as the teleportation process began. Meanwhile, the staff member watching this unfold had gone completely pale. She mumbled anxiously to herself, "Since Kim Miso is going with him, nothing bad should happen, right? Hopefully. I really hope nothing bad happens." No one knows how this is going to turn out. Elsewhere, a black-clad player who had been watching them disappear into the mission zone scratched his head in confusion. "Do you guys think he'll actually pull it off?" Hearing this, the burly player in the iron helmet scoffed and responded with absolute certainty, "No way. He's only level 17. How the hell is he supposed to fight level 100 monsters?" Unlike the others who dismissed Sang-yoon outright, the blue-clad player had a different perspective. "Hey, do you really think Kim Miso would just randomly bring him along for no reason? She's currently being praised as the youngest A+ ranked player. Do you think her ability to judge people is that poor?" He crossed his arms and continued, "You guys know about the ranking system that the Player Association recently restructured, right? It was created because evaluating a player's strength purely based on level was inaccurate. There are 2 criteria for ranking. First, the number of dungeons cleared. Second, an overall assessment of the player's combat sense, and that means Kim Miso reached A+ rank purely based on her combat sense. The 2 other players listening to him already knew this information, but they still had some lingering doubts. One of them asked, "I get that, but why A+? Why not just at this, The blue-clad player smirked knowingly. That's because there are even bigger monsters ranked above her, right? But forget that for now, it doesn't matter. What does matter is that he just went in together with Kim Mi-so. With that realization sinking in, the single guys among them let out dramatic sighs of envy. Damn it, so jealous. Some even wiped away imaginary tears, feeling utterly miserable. As the scene shifts to Sang-hyun's group, they find themselves in a modern cityscape, the setting for their current mission, towering high into the sky. The structure they must defend pulses with arcs of lightning, crackling with an ominous energy. Atop the tower, Kim Mi-so stands with her bow in hand, her sharp gaze following Sang-hyun as he silently strides across the bridge. Words carry responsibility. If things get too dangerous, of course, I'll step in. But I hope this experience will make him realize the reality of the situation, she muses, flashing back to 30 minutes earlier. Just after their arrival, Sang-hyun had made a proposal that left Mi-so momentarily stunned. "What did you just say?" she asked, narrowing her eyes at him. Still checking his weapons, Sang-hyun responded casually. "I meant exactly what I said, unless I ask for help. Don't interfere. If you focus on support, I'll give you 5%. Mi-so blinked in disbelief. "So I didn't mishear?" "Nope," Sang-hyun replied nonchalantly. "You just sit back and support and you'll still pocket 5%. Sounds like a great deal, doesn't it?" Mi-so glanced him over from head to toe before shaking her head. "You think I'm hesitating because of that? There's no way you can handle this alone. We're talking about 300 of them, not just 1 or 2. Even someone at level 100 like me would struggle dealing with them solo." She trailed off, her words fading as she caught the unwavering confidence in Sang-hyun's expression. His smirk held an air of mystery as he simply said, "Just watch and see." Somehow, something about that look made Mi-so reconsider. Letting out a sigh, she finally relented. "Fine, but for every monster you miss, you lose 1% of your share. If you let 95 of them slip through, you walk away with nothing. Got it?" Returning to the present, Sang-hyun now stands face to face with several deep blue-furred wolves. Their glowing purple eyes gleam with malice, their presence exuding a dangerous aura. Snarling, they fix their bloodthirsty gaze on him. Gripping his sword tightly, Sang-hyun slams it against the ground with a confident smirk. "Too bad for you," he says, his voice brimming with excitement, "because I don't plan on missing a single one." Without any warning, both sides lunged at each other, exchanging what could only be described as affectionate blows and true to Misa's expectations. Sang-hyun didn't disappoint with a single fluid dash. His greatsword cleaved through the air at lightning speed, striking the monstrous wolves with pinpoint accuracy. They barely had time to let out a single cry before collapsing in lifeless heaps. After finishing his attack, Sang-hyun turned back to admire his handiwork, a slight smirk forming on his lips. For creatures that look this menacing, their death cries are actually kinda cute. Meanwhile, Mi-so, still perched atop the tower, found herself momentarily speechless at the display. Even she had to admit, he's not just some arrogant rookie. The strike just now was flawless. His stance maximized the great sword's reach with perfect precision. It was the ideal form, similar to the elite swordsman in her guild. He always talks about offense and defense as one, and more importantly, he minimizes unnecessary movements, cutting down multiple enemies in a single swing. However, despite his confidence, there were still far too many enemies. A level 17 player going up against an overwhelming number like this, it's just not possible. That was when a creeping realization hit her. Her expression stiffened as she replayed what she had just witnessed. Wait a second, something's off. Her gaze sharpened as her mind raced through the events. Why weren't the monsters moving at all just now? A chilling thought struck her, making her eyes widen in shock. No way, could it be? Stun? She shouted, her voice echoing in disbelief. The realization hit her so hard that she lost balance, tumbling forward in a panic. Fortunately, at the last second, she managed to grab onto the railing. Swiftly pulling herself back up, she clutched her chest, still reeling from the shock. Damn it, that was close. Almost fell right off. But her mind wasn't on her near accident. It was still racing over what she had just witnessed. That was definitely a stun effect, and I counted 4 whole seconds. If that's really the case, then he even surpasses Jinyo in that regard. That means he can leisurely apply crowd control and wipe out enemies at his own pace. Her heart pounded as she processed the implications. Just who the hell is this guy? From Sang-hyun's perspective, with his stun ability, cutting down the monsters was as effortless as slicing through paper. Haha, why is this so easy? He laughed, thoroughly enjoying himself. But as if the heavens decided to spice things up, the difficulty of the mission was suddenly cranked up a notch. Without warning, one of the wolves was sent flying forward, forcing Sang-hyun to halt his movements. His eyes flicked toward the source of the disturbance. In the distance, something massive was hurtling toward him at an astonishing speed. Every wolf in its path was being tossed aside like ragdolls. The sight made a bead of sweat roll down Sang-hyun's temple as he he muttered. So it's finally here. Black Wolf. Standing before him was an enormous black wolf, its sheer size rivaling that of a truck. Its imposing presence filled the air with a terrifying aura, and the moment it locked eyes on Sang-yoon, it unleashed a deafening roar. Black Wolf. I didn't encounter it too many times in my past life, but is this why it feels so familiar? At that moment, Sang-yoon felt his entire body seize up. A system notification flashed before his eyes. Black Wolf has inflicted the negative status, Stun. And it wasn't just him. The wolf's powerful stun effect extended all the way to Miso, who had been observing from afar. However, just as the effect should have taken hold, a protective aura shimmered around her. Due to her artifact's effect, the negative status, Stun, has been nullified. Seeing this notification, Miso's eyes snapped open in realization. That's right, the Black Wolf can use Stun too. I was too caught up watching him fight that I completely forgot. And to think I was considering teaching him a lesson, that was reckless. Her gaze turned sharp as she swiftly drew her bow, preparing to provide support. I can accept that he somehow has an extended stun duration. Fine. But for him to also have a way to nullify status effects at such a low level, that's practically unheard of. But before she could even let loose an arrow, Sang-yoon had already taken action. Using his recovery ring, he instantly dispelled the stun effect. The next second, his body shot forward like a bullet. Miso, still holding her bowstring taut, froze in place, her eyes widened in disbelief. There's no way a nearly flawless greatsword stands. An abnormally long stun effect. And now the ability to negate status effects? Is he really just a level 17 player? Unaware of Misa's internal thoughts, the Black Wolf, originally charging in to get a bite of Sang-yoon, suddenly skidded to a stop, its massive paws carving deep grooves into the ground, seeing its prey casually shake off the stun effect. The beast's once ferocious eyes now flickered with a hint of panic. Sang-yoon, amused by the wolf's dumbfounded expression, let out a chuckle. Surprised. "Ha, you thought your prey would be paralyzed, completely defenseless. But here I am, moving freely." That moment of hesitation has already decided the outcome of this battle. Without giving the wolf a chance to recover, Sang-yoon shifted his weight backward, lowering his stance before executing a swift slide under its belly. In the same motion, he thrust his great sword upward, slicing deep into the beast's underbelly, leaving behind all along gruesome wound. The mighty Black Wolf, without ever getting a proper chance to show its strength, could only let out a regretful whimper before succumbing to the abyss. Standing beneath its massive body, Sang-yoon grabbed its tail and gave it a yank before sighing in annoyance. "Damn it, my clothes are covered in blood. Thought I'd make it through clean." He clicked his tongue, glancing down at the crimson-stained fabric. Then, as if a mischievous idea struck him, his lips curled into a grin. "Well, since I'm already messy, should I just go all out for fun?" His gaze lifted toward the remaining monsters, his eyes gleaming with danger. Meanwhile, from her vantage point, Misa's expression had completely transformed. No longer was she merely observing with mild curiosity. Instead, her eyes sparkled, as if she had just discovered a rare diamond hidden within a pile of rubble. Haha, what is this guy? And just like that, before long, Sang-yoon had nearly wiped out the entire horde of monsters in the mission, slashing through them like a man possessed. Around him lay the corpses of countless green wolves, their blood soaking into the battlefield. A glowing message appeared before his eyes, notifying the player. Monster Defense Mission. Enemies eliminated 299 300s. You have leveled up. You have earned a Rank D title, Fearless. Rank D Fearless effect grants full resistance to status effects caused by the roars of wolf-type monsters. Even though the effect was limited to a single monster species, Sang-yoon didn't mind at all. A new title was a new title and one more step forward. A small smile crept across his face as he took a moment to breathe, then turned his gaze behind him, where Miso, the archer, was standing watchfully. "They're not looking at me with suspicion anymore," he thought. "Those doubtful stares, they're gone. Now they're genuinely watching me, watching to see what I'll do next. And with people watching, a performer like me can't afford to rest." He cracked his knuckles and smirked to himself. "Guess I'd better wrap this up quick. So, are you ready for me, Grey Wolf?" As he muttered those words, he glanced upward, and there it was. The final boss had arrived, the Lord of Werewolves, half human, half wolf. It towered over the battlefield, its entire frame rippling with thick muscle. The moment it laid eyes on him, it let out a thunderous roar, slamming its clawed hand straight toward him. The impact was so powerful that the ground beneath them exploded into fragments. But Sang-yoon didn't flinch, drawing on his combat experience. He instinctively dodged to the side with ease. Not only that, He even had the nerve to taunt the beast. Your attacks are known for being unpredictable, right? But that was 30 years ago. These days, every move of yours has been analyzed to death. At this point, shouldn't we be calling them predictable instead? He narrowed his eyes, his tone growing sharper. Sorry, but I've already got every one of your moves and skills figured out. The words had barely left his lips before he launched himself forward, legs coiled with power, blasting toward the werewolf lord like a bullet cutting through the wind. At that very moment, Sang-yoon swung his great sword with force, slashing it straight into the werewolf's body. The beast barely had time to let out a pained howl before a massive wound split open across its chest. And yet, looking at the result, Sang-yoon didn't seem particularly impressed. Just as I thought, he muttered. Even with all its movements predicted, a level 100+ boss like this still packs a punch. It's no pushover. Meanwhile, off in the distance, Miso stood watching as she witnessed Sang-yoon handling the quest's final boss with apparent ease. Beads of sweat started forming on her forehead. Her voice was almost dazed as she whispered, This is completely insane. There's more than one weird thing going on here. He's not just in a berserker state. He's somehow immune to the fear effects from that wolf too, and he's carrying that massive sword, moving like it's nothing. It's like he's playing a joke on the entire system. She kept going, struggling to believe what she was seeing. And on top of that, he's predicting the Wolf Lord's moves in advance. He's going toe-to-toe with it and not losing an inch. The longer she watched, the more surreal it felt. Her eyes stayed locked on the battle. By now, the Werewolf Lord had completely lost it. With a feral snarl, it opened its jaws wide and lunged at Sang-hyun, aiming to crush him in a single bite. But Sang-yoon was already one step ahead. He twisted his body, dodging to the side just in time. However, the beast wasn't done. Letting out a furious roar, it slashed out with one of its razor-sharp claws, aiming straight for Sang-yoon's exposed flank. Forced onto the defensive, Sang-yoon raised his great sword like a shield and blocked the blow. Even the Wolf Lord seemed stunned. Its eyes widened slightly, not expecting its attack to be stopped. But what it saw next wasn't fear or hesitation. It was the cold, focused gaze of its opponent. I told you, didn't I? Sang-yoon growled through clenched teeth. I know everything about you. I spent my whole damn life in my past world learning how to beat you. Then, for a brief moment, his eyes flicked toward Miso, who was still standing at a distance. And somehow, in that fleeting glance, she understood exactly what he was trying to do. The most ridiculous part, the part that made her want to laugh despite the intensity of it all, was the way he was fighting, not for survival, not even to win, but like he was trying to prove something to her. Watching this, Miso let out an awkward, half-frustrated sigh. Haha, what kind of guy is he? Seriously? Back in the heat of battle, the sound of clashing steel echoed relentlessly through the air. As the fight dragged on, Sang-yoon started to feel the toll it was taking on his body. His stamina was dropping fast. This fight's dragging out way longer than I thought it would, he muttered under his breath. Frustration building. I've been showing off, trying to look cool in front of Kim Miso, and now it's eating into my time with this boss. If things had gone according to plan, this thing should have been out of gas by now. So why the hell is it still going strong? Behind him, the Werewolf Lord continued its relentless pursuit. It was like the beast wouldn't be satisfied until it had landed a few solid blows on him. Sang-hyun could hear the piercing whoosh of claws slicing through the air at his back. The sound alone was enough to make the hair on his neck stand on end. This isn't good, he thought, beads of sweat forming on his brow. If I let my guard down even once, I'm done for. My stamina is already taking a serious hit. At the same time, the boss monster seemed to be losing patience. No longer content with simply chasing him down, it suddenly gathered strength and lunged forward with explosive speed. Sang-yoon, sensing the shift, snapped his head around just in time. But then, something clicked. That movement. I know this, his thoughts raced. It's one of the boss's high-tier attacks, designed to bait its opponent into dropping their guard. A powerful fake-out that opens the door for a devastating follow-up. This move has killed so many players before, though he'd never tested it in live combat. Sang-yoon knew what he had to do. Now wasn't the time for hesitation. No turning back, he told himself. Sometimes, bold moves are the only way forward. With resolve hardening in his eyes, Sang-yoon spun on his heel. Gripping his sword tighter, he made the split-second decision to meet the boss head-on. In an instant, both combatants hurled themselves at each other. Sang-yoon swung his sword in a sweeping arc, slashing clean across the monster's right arm, severing it entirely in a single fluid motion. But the Werewolf Lord didn't even flinch. Taking advantage of Sang-yoon's unguarded moment just after his attack, the beast swung its remaining arm with brutal force. Its claw tore straight across Sang-yoon's chest, raking deep into his flesh. A sharp spray of blood burst into the air, painting the battlefield in red. The metallic tang of it filled the space around them. Off in the distance, Miso fell to her knees in a daze as she witnessed the brutal scene unfold before her eyes, her vision blurred with tears. "For someone I've barely even known," she whispered shakily. "Shin Sang-hyun, this is so stupid. I should have jumped in to help him right away, even if he showed unbelievable skill. Just standing here doing nothing. It's no different from killing him with my own hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Shin Sang-hyun, the archer, could barely contain the guilt in her voice as she berated herself. But of course there's no way our protagonist would go down that easily. Right then, at the center of the battlefield, a soft green glow began to emanate from Sang-hyun's body. The light was gentle, almost calming. Misa's sobs faded as she lifted her head to watch in stunned silence. To understand what was happening, we need to rewind a bit, back to the time when Sang-hyun had cleared out the goblin dungeon and obtained a shield, Cudnass's barrier. That item had long since been absorbed and reduced to ashes, but now its special ability was finally being activated. The effect was called Sacrifice. Sacrifice, a conditional passive skill that activates under specific circumstances. It fully restores any damaged body parts selected, converting the damage received into restorative energy. If the incoming damage exceeds the player's max HP, the effect revives the player with full health, using the value of that lethal blow. After reading the effect's description, Sang-hyun instantly understood how the skill worked. A conditional healing skill that only triggers in specific moments. It becomes insanely useful after taking fatal damage. So, I need to select a body part for it to protect. Right after, a system screen popped up, displaying a selection of body parts that he could assign to activate the sacrifice effect. Seeing the options laid out before him, Sang-hyun couldn't help but swallow hard. What is this? They've broken it down way too specifically. There are 16 sections in total? That's insane. The safest choice would usually be the back, but even the back is split into 4 sections. That's completely inefficient and dangerous. I can't even predict where I'll be hit. He knew that if he wanted to survive, he couldn't just rely on luck. In that case, he thought to himself, eyes narrowing, I'll have to use this ability strategically, back in the present moment. Thanks to the sacrifice ability, all the damage Sang-hyun had just taken from the boss's vicious strike was instantly converted into life force. His health bar surged to full in the blink of an eye. Still, even Sang-hyun couldn't help but break into a cold sweat from the gamble he had just taken. Phew, it worked. If I had miscalculated even a little, I would have been dead on the spot. That was way too risky, he muttered to himself. But I guess I pulled off a lucky 2-for-1, right in front of him. The werewolf lord was now stunned, its body locked in place, frozen by the effect. Seeing this, Sang-hyun gave a small shake of his head and chuckled at the monster's misfortune. "I can't tell if I got lucky or if you got unlucky," he said aloud. "The right arm you used as bait to lure me in, it got chopped off. Who would have thought you'd lower your guard just to land a lethal blow? But now, how about we test your endurance at a whole different level?" And with that, the tide of battle was sealed. Missing an arm and stuck in a stunned state, there was no way the bulky boss monster could withstand what came next. In no time at all, it had collapsed before Sang-hyun, down on its knees, barely clinging to life. Only the faintest trace of breath remained in its massive body. Sang-hyun exhaled deeply, finally allowing himself to relax. That's the end of it. The stun didn't last long, but it was enough to take you down. Just then, he heard footsteps rushing toward him from behind. Turning, he saw Miso sprinting up beside him. He greeted her casually. "You made it, Kim Miso." But instead of returning the calm tone, Miso snapped at him in frustration. "If you had a healing ability like that, you could have at least told me beforehand. I nearly had a heart attack watching you die. And seriously, what was that just now? Did you resurrect or something? How the hell did you know the werewolf lord's every move and skill so precisely? I've seen a lot of sword wielders before, but none of them have been as mysterious as you, Shin Sang-hyun. It's like you're..." Before she could finish her sentence, Sang-hyun cut in with a cold, almost amused smirk and asked, "Like I'm what, exactly?" If you enjoyed watching a man literally eat his way to the top of the leaderboards, hit like and subscribe. Do it now, or I'm telling the MC that your phone is actually a divine rank artifact, and we all know how that ends. Comment "still hungry" below if you'd also trade a legendary shield for a permanent stat buff. Thanks for watching, and try not to get eaten. See ya!